Hey, Disruption Network. This is Mike Sacco, the general manager at Nye Volkswagen of Rome. If you don't know me by name, it's only because you have not received the best deal. There's only one reason to leave Utica, and that's to come see me in Rome and get the best deal on your next new, pre-owned, or certified VW. Mention that you heard this ad from Disruption Network and receive $250 off your next vehicle purchase. You'll know why our customers say, I love my Nye VW. Come see us at 5865 Rome Taberg Road in Rome, or visit us online at nyvwofrome.com.
The Property Sisters of the Mohawk Valley was born when 3 top producing agents with over 25 years of combined experience selling real estate joined forces to take real estate to the next level. We practice with honesty, integrity, and the knowledge to help make the buying and selling process easy and stress-free for all of our clients. We pledge to always make our clients our top priority from start to finish, and even after the house is closed. We will always be a valued resource for information and assistance for our buyers and sellers. Our customers over the years have become not only past clients, but great friends. As we join hands together as the Property Sisters of the Mohawk Valley, we look forward to serving our clients and our community and making a positive difference. You can reach us at 315-601-9630 for all of your real estate needs.
Hi, this is attorney Nick Pasalacqua. The team of attorneys I have assembled at Pasalacqua & Associates has been carefully hand-picked to include the best trial attorneys in the particular areas of the law that we practice. Have you been charged with DWI or any other crime? Members of our team include former assistant district attorneys, now fighting to protect your rights 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Have you or someone you love been seriously injured in a motor vehicle accident? Members of the team at Pasalacqua & Associates include former insurance defense attorneys, now fighting to ensure that you get every penny you're entitled to. If you need legal help quick, don't waste your time or money calling anyone else. Remember, for legal help quick, you better call Nick and the team at Pasalacqua & Associates. 315-500-NICK or 315-500-6425 or visit cnytriallaw.com today.
The following program is an exclusive Disruption Networks production.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the Baseline. Play ball!
Out there, sports fans, baseball fans from across America, and here locally in Utica, New York, we are live with the Baseline. Here as always with you, SPG.
What's
and
up,
JP.
everybody? This is what we have a 2-week hiatus. So and that was a 2-week period where there was so much baseball news. So we got a lot to talk about tonight. Here we are on the 5th of August, 2018. Wow, the season is flying by. The trade deadline is over, and we're in the dog days of summer, and before you know it, we're going to be really towards the end of some of these pennant races and wild card chases. So we're right here, man. We're getting towards the end of the season already, and I can't believe it. I can't believe here we are in August.
I can't believe how quick this went by, and now we're talking here. We're sorting out the playoff scenario. We're talking about trade deadline deals that just happened, and like you said, we're getting into the dog days. We're getting into August.
August 5th.
So it's crazy.
3 years ago today, on August 5th.
This date in
baseball. Luis Severino made his major league debut with the New York Yankees as a 21-year-old. Was called up, basically a post-trade deadline move, acting almost as an acquisition at the deadline, even they brought him up from their own system. And he went on a pretty good run his rookie year. And, he's kind of slumping a little bit right now.
Yeah, we'll get into that.
We'll get into that a little bit. But he is a bona fide ace despite some recent struggles. So here we are 3 years later, and he is a number one starting pitcher, all-star, one of the best when he's on his game. So 3 years ago today, Luis Severino made his debut.
Luis Severino struggled a little bit in Boston. Struggled a little bit the last couple weeks, but hopefully he can turn it around here.
Yeah, we have Adeline checking in. Hi, Adeline. Thanks for tuning in. That's a good reminder, too. Check out all the other content here on Disruption Network. Go to the website, disruptionnetwork.net. So many good shows, so much good content. You can find all the past shows for all of the shows on Disruption Network on the website. Home Free with Adeline Van Dyke, Ease Beats and Bizz. The D-line will be coming back up soon. We're getting back into football season. Of course, EC Radio every weekday, Monday through Thursday every week. The wrestling podcast. I mean, I can go on.
Wrestling Fandom Radio. They actually do
good stuff.
Really, really good. They got a great theme song. I'm not much into the wrestling thing, but I do stick around and watch them. They're funny guys. I like what they got going on. So, yeah, lots of stuff going on here at Disruption Network. Check it all out. But right now, we're going to get into some baseball.
And one other thing to mention, too, something upcoming for us on Friday. We got to talk about that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
We got to talk about that. We've got a remote broadcast coming up Friday evening.
The Battle of the Bats happening this Friday. For anybody interested, they're having a home run derby style competition at Dulutis Field in Rome, New York.
And that's what, August 10th? Is that right?
That's August 10th, 6 p.m.
August 10th.
Friday, August 10th. And the Baseline, me and SPG, we're going to be doing our first live remote, our first one. So they're going to have this home run derby style contest that's sponsored by our sponsor, NYVW. And we're going to go there, and maybe SPG and I will take some swings. Maybe we'll get into the competition.
Yeah, we'll see.
We'll see. Maybe they'll allow it. And if I won't break my back in one or two swings, then
it's been a while. I'll have to take some practice swings all week just in case.
You know what they got to do for us? They got to create those. They got to put like a little snow fence out there that they do for the
softball.
Celebrity softball in the All-Star game. If they do that, then maybe I'll go yard. All right, no promises. If they do that, maybe I could go Oppo Taco. Who knows? But
tune in or come down.
Tune in or come down. Yeah, come down, show your support, something local. If you're looking for it, it's on the former Griffiths Air Force Base in Rome, New York. It's right by the F-14 or whatever it is. Somebody correct me. Dave.
I think it's a B-52, I think.
Well, Dave's watching, so he'll correct me.
Dave knows.
He does. Dave does know. So, yeah, August 5th, lots of stuff going on right now. We're going to get into later. Stick around for our 7th inning stretch. We're going to talk about the trade deadline deals, and we're going to rank them. We're going to rank the winners.
The winners and the losers.
Probably mention some losers.
We're going to be ranking the winners, but we will certainly mention some teams that we think were losers at this year's trade deadline.
There was one that I can think of. One. And we're probably going to throw that team out of the baseline later again, too. So
yeah, they're frequently out of the baseline. And still,
if you're a fan of
just a little tease,
in Flushing, Queens.
Anybody who has listened to our show probably can easily predict who that team will be.
Just when you can control the market and you don't.
So aside from the trade deadline, we got to mention the Boston Massacre series that's been going on these last... Now, 4 days, the Boston Red Sox just continuing to just dominate, and this time it's against the rival New York Yankees.
Domination.
Just complete domination. The pitching has
Not even the fact that they're scoring so many runs.
And that's with Chris Sale on the disabled list, and they are still just sending out
the Yankees
Rick Porcello, and Nate Eovaldi was a great pickup. He went out there and... he was lights out the other night. So
he was lights out. You want to know what I know?
They just look unbeatable right now.
Is Eovaldi, when he was with the Yankees, Eovaldi was a thrower. He threw hard, he threw 100 miles an hour, but he kept the ball up in the zone. He didn't have a great spin rate. He didn't get the ball by people. He has developed this cutter that complements how hard he throws. He keeps it down in the zone. It's moving. I think that might be an absolutely lights out pickup for the Boston Red Sox. And, tune in. Maybe one of us is going to have the Boston Red Sox on our list later for trade deadline winners, because they did go out and make a few moves and address some needs out there.
They did. They didn't go huge. They didn't pick up any superstars, but they don't need to. Look what they're doing.
Honestly, Eovaldi looks like a superstar the last two starts.
He does. And we talked about him as a potential Yankees target a month or so ago.
And he's never had a shortage of stuff. It was almost as if he didn't have the confidence to throw his stuff.
The day they acquired him, you sent me a message that said the Red Sox just picked up Nate Eovaldi, and my first thought was, oh no, that's the guy I was hoping for.
He's got the stuff
with the Yankees to pick up because the price was right.
Maybe not the pedigree, okay, but he's got the stuff.
He's got a little bit of pedigree though. I mean, he was never a top end starting pitcher, but there was always big potential there and a big arm, like you said, a 100 mile per hour guy. So that was a great pickup. It looks genius right now. His first couple starts, including the other day against the Yankees, just a phenomenal start. And
the Red Sox are loaded for bear right now, and they're playing like it. JD Martinez is on another planet. Mookie Betts is on another planet. Jackie Bradley, if you don't have the pleasure of getting to watch Jackie Bradley, which we don't watch so many Red Sox games because, I don't get NESN and, typically we're watching Yes, but Jackie Bradley covers so much area. He made a phenomenal catch earlier in the week, not against the Yankees, but perhaps the catch of the year where he covered it was something like 200 feet and ran into the wall sliding. He covers so much ground out there, and he comes up with some timely hitting. Yes, he hits 213, and all the knocks. He's not fulfilling the potential that everybody thought he had when he broke onto the scene. But man, that guy's a good center fielder.
Oh, in the field, yeah,
he's just a great.
We did a ranking earlier this season on one of our shows of the top defensive players in baseball right now. I don't think either one of us had him on our list, but
we
he was
missed the ball.
He was an honorable mention for sure.
Yeah, we definitely missed the ball.
He's like number 8 on the list, and we only did 7.
Now that I get to watch, you watch him 19 times a year, especially in Fenway. We play center field, and there's so much space behind him where it goes out to that 430 mark, and so much space back there, and he just makes it look effortless. So. As painful as it is for these two Yankee fans sitting here at this table with these microphones right now to admit this, Boston is far and away the best team in the Major League Baseball right now. The record says it, but just the way that they're playing, it's phenomenal. I've never seen a team as a collective team take so many defensive foul me off swings in at bats to extend at bats. Like 1 through 9, they all play like Johnny Damon. They all sit there and just try to extend at bats and get the one pitch that they're looking for, and then they tattoo it. If you look at that home run that J.D. Martinez hit off of Chance Adams yesterday, I mean, you just don't make those pitches to those guys because they're going to punish them. A well-disciplined team. The hitting coach is doing a good job. Alex Cora doing a great job.
I will say, you mentioned Chance Adams, and I saw some positive things.
There's nothing to be worried about with that start.
There were some
Chance
positive
Adams.
things for a Major League debut, and that's a tough spot for your Major League debut.
Throwing harder than I knew.
Pitching in Fenway Park, a critical game. That's a tough spot to be put in, and he did okay. The Yankees just couldn't put any offense on the board to back him. Not to say that they would have won if maybe the Yankees get another run or two. Not that it was a lights out start, but I saw some positive things, and who knows? You got to, as a Yankees fan, you got to look for some kind of little glimmer of positivity out of the series because it's very tough to do when you've lost the first 3 games. And Sunday Night Baseball tonight, they're actually playing right now, bottom of the second inning, tied 0-0. Yankees trying to avoid the sweep, trying to put the brooms away. We don't want those brooms out tonight.
In the first 2 innings tonight, the Yankees have more hits than they had in, I don't know, a 17-inning stretch at one point in this series.
Yeah, there was a long stretch where...
How about that gem? An absolute gem by former Cy Young winner Rick Porcello. Yep. Just an absolute gem.
The only hit was the Andujar home run.
One batter over the minimum.
That was like maybe a 14 or 15 inning stretch where that was the only hit that the Yankees had was that
until Brett
Andujar
Gardner's single yesterday.
Yep.
Eovaldi was facing the minimum because he retired people with double plays. He walked a couple guys, and everybody got retired with double plays yesterday.
But yeah, that Porcello
was facing the minimum for at least 5 innings yesterday.
What was the Porcello? 86 pitches.
86 pitches. Complete game. 86. That's a la Greg Maddux right there. There's just nothing more to say about that. Dave checking in. Gotta love that Yankee hustle on display. Oh wait, yeah. Truthfully, there is no hustle in Yankee land right now. It's not good. Gary Sanchez, not good. I don't think that we've had a show You stick around later on because you might see Gary Sanchez somewhere he doesn't want to be. I don't think that we've had a show since Gary Sanchez got essentially sent down. It just looks as if it's more than an injury. It was a punishment to go on the DL, maybe. But you got to hustle. He cost them a game in Tampa Bay with 2 bonehead plays.
Yep.
2 bonehead plays. So somebody needs to light a fire under the ass of the Yankees. That's the bottom line. As for Luis Severino, some, I guess, observations is that he tends to pitch to one quadrant of the plate, as I've noticed. He keeps the ball high. Elevating his fastball was good for him in the beginning of the season because people couldn't catch up to it. He's lost a little zip on the fastball. He was sitting around 95, 96. And how hard is it for somebody to say lost a little zip and he's sitting at 95, 96? But still, can't elevate the fastball, and he's got to have that slider working. Maybe work a little quicker. It's not the Severino that we saw in the beginning of the season with that machismo, with that swagger out there on the mound. He just hasn't had that. He's pitching tentatively and almost like he's trying to spot the ball. So I think, best case scenario, maybe you skip him a start and get him back with Pedro. Get him back with somebody to straighten him out and show him video from the beginning of the year. And, maybe it's a mechanical thing. Maybe it's a fatigue thing. But whatever it is, the Yankees need their ace back. Masahiro Tanaka is really pitching quite well.
He is.
He's undefeated
Credit
since
to Tanaka,
April. So
not since April, I don't think, but it has been quite a while. Maybe
it's at least like
been
10 or 11 starts anyway.
And it's worth mentioning he missed quite a bit of time, but I don't think he has taken an L since he's come back from that injury. So it has been a long time.
It's been a while.
And he's pitching great.
He's been a legitimate stopper for that team that so desperately needs it.
And he's pitching tonight. We'll see how that goes.
Add J-Hap. Good move. Somebody that the two of us earlier in one of our segments had mentioned as probably being the best available pitcher on the market.
Right, debatable, but he was one of the ones I liked the best.
Yes,
in a very weak crop of
former
pitchers.
20-game winner. 2 years ago he won 20 games. So,
not to mention J-Hap is historically very good against the Boston Red Sox too. I saw a couple stats. Let me see if I can pull it up if I have it here still. J-Hap, since 2015, he's made 10 starts against the Boston Red Sox with a 1.78 ERA, a 2.02 opponent batting average, and 45 Ks to 18 walks. That's not to say that historical performance can be equated to what this current Boston team is doing, but that's a positive. That's something that you would look at if you're the Yankees and you're acquiring a pitcher, and you see that he's had success, especially in Fenway Park, and that should catch your eye. And they ended up making the move. They traded Brandon Drury, who was he's a good player. He's a good player, but he was blocked. He was excess at this point because of Andujar coming up right away and just being an extra base machine. He's a nice asset. Great bench player, but if there's value there in the trade market where you can bring back a J-Hap to strengthen your roster coming into postseason,
and he pitched well in his debut for the Yankees. He comes out, he pitches well.
Yep.
Suffering from Noah Syndergaard disease.
Now he has hand, foot, mouth
disease.
Yeah.
You got to hope his fingernails.
Did you see Noah Syndergaard's tweet when he saw J-Hap had hand, foot, mouth disease?
No.
He said the trade nobody expected. Noah Syndergaard trades hand, foot, mouth disease to J-Hap for a disease to be named later.
That's pretty funny. So Yankees make a smart move. They get J-Hap. Yankees make another smart move. They get a stopper lefty for that bullpen in Zach Britton. Not trading much back. Dylan Tate is the highlight in the piece going back.
Right, but there's 40-man roster concerns.
40-man roster concerns, and Dylan Tate is timed out after this year. Not on the 40-man, not going to be protected, so he is Rule 5 eligible. So you're really not losing a guy that was in your future plans, per se, with Dylan Tate. And you go out and you get a guy in Zach Britton who had 48 saves or some odd saves in 2016, 2015. So recently had some injury bug bite him with that heel injury. But, a legitimate, probably next to Brad Hand, the best left-hander available for a bullpen this offseason. They go in
I'd say so.
Or this trade deadline. So they go out and they get Zach Britton. 2 shrewd, great moves for the Yankees. Didn't spend much to do it. And then the inexplicable happens. They trade Adam Warren. Now, it's not that Adam Warren wasn't the 13th pitcher on that roster, because he was. It's just the way that he was in the hierarchy of everything in that bullpen. He was the 13th member of that staff, and he is expendable at that point in time.
Yeah, he's the Brandon Drury, basically.
But the trading partner baffles me. To trade Adam Warren, who bumps up into the top 10, top 6 or 7 guys in that bullpen anyway in Seattle. Maybe the top 4 or 5 guys in that
very
bullpen.
good bullpen, too.
A good bullpen, but he bumps up into a 4 or 5 role in that bullpen. He's got experience going long, which gives them insurance for the back end of their rotation. Come on, guys, get me 4 today because I got Adam Warren can give me 3, and then I can bridge you all the way down to Diaz.
Yeah, and you mentioned the team that picked him up in. If you look at the standings now with this Yankees recent slide, I think they've lost, 4 in a row now?
4 straight now.
4 straight, playing Boston again tonight. Potential for a 5-game losing streak if they can not avoid the sweep.
4 and 6 in their last
10. Seattle and Oakland are about 5 games behind the Yankees right now. That's it. The Yankees are 5 games up on 2 teams that are right there. And Oakland is playing
the
fantastic
Yankees,
right now.
I mean, not to really shit in our cornflakes, but the Yankees are only 3 up on the Athletics right now.
3 up on the Athletics. The Athletics are the hottest team in baseball. They are 32-10 in their last 42 games.
They sure are. And doing it with seemingly nobody. Right?
Yeah, I mean, they have some good bats.
They do.
There.
No, they absolutely
your
do.
K-Rys
But
Davis and your Matt Olson.
Not a whole lot of household names in that lineup.
But you look at the pitching staff.
Controllable payroll.
There's nobody that really catches your eye on
Sean
the pitching
Manaea,
staff.
That's it, really.
Manaea, yeah, but I mean, if that's
he's
your ace,
roller coaster.
Yeah.
He is.
I mean, they have some decent guys. Trevor Cahill can put some good starts together.
Sure, and we're certainly not knocking it. It's almost like they're pulling a rabbit out of the hat.
And going back to another one of our 7th-inning stretches.
Man.
Yeah, when we ranked the top managers in baseball, I had Bob Melvin on my list. I forget where I had him.
Very high, maybe number 2.
I forget where I had him. I'd have to go back and take a look at that. But
no, you definitely had him up there.
Yeah, it's either Bob Melvin. If Alex Cora doesn't win Manager of the Year in the American League, you have to hand it to Bob Melvin. You have to. I don't see any other manager that is even in the discussion right now in the American League.
Yeah. So back to the Yankees and this questionable deal, sending Adam Warren over to Seattle, and then to re-bolster your bullpen, they go and make a trade for Lance Lynn. We both cringed at that trade, and then he comes in relief of the abysmal Sonny Gray, who has been relegated to mop-up duty in the bullpen. Now, Sonny Gray is being replaced in the rotation by Lance Lynn. I will say Lance Lynn impressed me the other day. He
came out and he had some
throwing strikes, working fast.
4 innings. Did he even give up a hit? Maybe one hit?
He gave up 1 hit, I believe. Scoreless inning. He pitched well. But is that the answer at the back end of your rotation?
Dave's checking in. He says, hey, we got George Contos from the Tribe. So championship?
George Contos.
George Contos.
Yeah, I know, because
is a key piece is Leonis Martinez, I think, for the Indians. Although I do like that pickup.
No, it's actually a pretty decent pickup, but that's literally what the Tribe did.
My dad checking in too. Hey, Dad, he's tuning in. Thanks for checking out the show again. I know you're a dedicated listener, and always appreciate it.
So, George Contos. That's another, these are just heads. It's not like that Cleveland bullpen was vaunted in any way, shape, or form. So to go grab an expendable guy out of an expendable bullpen, I just don't see it. I don't understand some of these moves. Trading with a team that you may have to play in a one-game scenario and bolstering the back end or middle of their bullpen is just a questionable deal. But I will say, the Yankees were smart in the fact that they got international slot money back in return.
Oh yeah, there was some. There was definitely some benefit to that. You don't, your average fan might look at that and just see that line, international bonus money, and think, whatever, who cares about that? Yeah,
almost like a player to be named later. Like it doesn't matter, but it does.
They made good use of that money.
Yeah,
I mean, that was with good reason. That was good planning on Cashman's part.
I'll already allude to the fact that, I'm going to rank them probably near the bottom of my winners, but they did address some needs in the trade deadline. So We're going to talk about that international bonus money and what that was done with the Yankees. The Yankees did a peculiar thing that you don't see too awful lot, and they're in contention at the major league level. They're in contention for a playoff spot and for a World Series berth, and they still, at this trade deadline, made steps to strengthen the bottom of their organization. They made trades and international signings to keep replenishing at the bottom level.
Yeah, they picked up,
and it's a rare thing to see.
A couple very highly touted prospects with that international signing money,
Yes.
including Alexander Vargas, 16-year-old Cuban shortstop.
Yes.
I believe he was the consensus top international prospect on the market.
And they signed the number 2 international pitcher.
And I think he was like 5th overall.
And they did that. They did that with
Osiel Rodriguez.
Yes, Osiel Rodriguez, and they did that with the money that they got in return for the trade to get rid of Chase and Shreve to make room for Zach Britton. So the Yankees were very active at the deadline, but you got to question some of the moves that they've made, and that's why we're here. I am here to question those moves. Some of them. I love Cashman, and I tweeted that night that I love Brian Cashman. I'm behind everything that he's done for this team and continues to do for this team, but the trading partner makes me skeptical of that trade. That's really all I'm going to say. So that's really the Yankees news and notes. They are currently a dumpster fire in the last 10 games or so, and at the end of 2, they are tied 0-0 with the Red Sox right now.
So that was the non-waiver trade deadline talk, all these moves. And the Contos move was afterwards. He was either claimed on waivers or cleared and traded.
Because nobody wanted him.
There's some other
nobody
moves.
wanted him out of that dumpster fire.
There's actually some other bullpen moves that have happened.
I see you.
One of them today, actually. Earlier today, the Oakland A's picked up right-handed reliever Sean Kelly, formerly of the Washington Nationals.
Well, he got DFA'd.
He got DFA'd
for his tantrum.
Yeah. Well, yeah, when they were winning 25-1, he gets all pissed when he's coming off the mound, has a tantrum. You're up by 24 runs, dude.
Yeah. And you know what the Washington Nationals said to Sean Kelly?
You're out of here!
Yeah.
He went the way of the Ken Giles.
He did.
You're DFA'd. What did you just say to me?
You're out of here!
You're gone.
Speaking of one of those guys, Greg Holland from formerly of the St. Louis Cardinals, the Washington Nationals are pursuing Greg Holland.
Well, that's another guy. He's been kind of iffy at best.
Yep.
And signed to a pretty lucrative deal late in the off season this year, towards the end of spring training. So, hey, I guess it could get worse.
Another pitching move today.
How long is Doolittle out for?
I haven't heard a timetable for his return.
Kelvin Herrera filling in, but not filling in so great.
Right.
He's been kind of the Armando Benitez of that bullpen where, walk the bases loaded, strike out the next 3, and you get yourself a save.
Yeah.
So what was once a vaunted Nationals bullpen and Nationals team has become the single saddest story perhaps in baseball. Anyway, disappointing story.
A couple of
in
other
baseball
moves of note. The St. Louis Cardinals added Tyson Ross, who they claimed on waivers. San Diego let him go, so the Cardinals now have Tyson Ross. And the Milwaukee Brewers picked up some pitching help. They picked up Jordan Lyles off of waivers from the Padres as well. So still some moves, even though we are past the non-waiver trade deadline.
I don't want to keep giving too much away about the trade deadline because we're going to rank stuff later on. But
we're going to keep most of the trade deadline talk for later in the show.
The Brewers, man, I don't know what they did. They made themselves a murderer's row for sure. They can go out and hit the ball now.
Yeah, it's a very interesting lineup there with some guys playing out of position, and if they can make that work, it's genius to pick up all these hitters. But it's interesting. Travis Shaw now playing second base, Mike Moustakas there, Scope. But we'll get more into the trade deadline in our 7th inning stretch. So what do you say? You want to go through the standings? You want to get to the rundown?
No, you know what we got to do first?
What do we got?
we got to do the field report.
The field report. Yeah, there's
The field report. There is something out there on the field report, and we got to give you the news.
There's big news on the field report.
So if you guys aren't familiar with our show and you're tuning in for the first time, our boy Johnny Field, formerly of the Tampa Bay Rays and the Durham Bulls, is now
since our
on the
last
move.
show. Actually,
it's been 2 weeks. Yeah,
during our last show, you had discovered that Johnny Field had been designated for assignment. I hadn't seen that. It must have happened, shortly before we went on air with a few hours before. So I didn't realize he had been designated for assignment when we were talking about him last show 2 weeks ago. So since then, he has now been on 2 more teams. The Cleveland Indians claimed him, sent him down to Columbus, and just the other day...
We would have got a field report all day from Dave if he was a member of the Indians.
Right. Yeah, I know. Dave actually messaged me when the Indians picked him up. You were the one who told me he was DFA'd, and then when the Indians claimed him, Dave sent me a message saying that Johnny Field was now a member of the Cleveland Indians. And that didn't last very long. He ended up playing 5 games for Columbus. He did hit a home run. He batted .333. He did pretty well, 1.167 OPS. But apparently they didn't want him to stick around anyway, put him on waivers. And the Minnesota Twins picked him up a couple days ago. And he is now with Rochester, which is not far away from us. So it might warrant
Rochester.
It might warrant another trip out to visit Johnny Field.
And it's got to be in a third park, does it not? I mean, you just can't. He's going to expect you in Syracuse. He's going to expect you in the Bronx.
Right.
But if you show up to heckle him in Rochester,
it might be worth the trip out to watch the Rochester
He might
Red
tweet
Wings.
back. He might tweet back. Johnny Field, if you're watching, buddy, I hope that you are, because you're our boy, and we want you to nothing but success. And you're in a great organization now, and maybe you can crack that outfield, and you can stay.
It's a possibility. We'll see. They liked him enough to claim him.
No longer has shower shoe or fungus on his shower shoes. He is not with the Durham Bulls.
No, he played. He had a good run with the Durham Bulls. He was like an all-star for them for a couple of years, and it just didn't work out with the Tampa organization. It was like ever since I went to Yankee Stadium and heckled him, his career with Tampa just fell apart. I think I saw him one of his last games in a Durham Bulls uniform in Syracuse. He wasn't even playing. He was
coaching first.
Coaching first base for one inning. For 1 inning. And now he's with Rochester. He's only played 2 games with the Rochester Red Wings. He does have 2 hits. He's batting .250.
And a boy, Johnny. Listen, we're cheering for you, Johnny. 0 for 2 strikeouts, Johnny. It's not good. Okay,
sent you back to Durham, and here you are in Rochester. So we'll see. We'll see how you can turn it around. We're rooting for you.
Road.
This is tough love, Johnny.
That's all it is.
Tough love.
I hope that if he makes an All-Star game, I swear that you and I will be attending our first All-Star game, and I won't heckle him. I want to take a picture with Johnny Field. Either way, Johnny,
I'll be his biggest fan.
Tweet us, buddy. We are your biggest fan. So that's it. That's the field report. And now we are going to get into the rundown.
The rundown.
Over in the American League, we're going to start in the AL East. The aforementioned Boston Red Sox and New York Yankees still atop that division, but slightly different number in between them at 8.5 games starting tonight's game. Tampa Bay still hanging tough at 56-56. The Toronto Blue Jays at 51-60. And the Baltimore Orioles, not even worth mentioning.
44 games back.
44 games.
You think they'll end up 60 back? I think they'll surpass that pretty easily.
Yeah.
With the way Boston is playing.
Do you think that they could lose 115?
I do think they can, yeah.
Ouch. Over to the Central.
The Cleveland Indians still in first place by a very comfortable margin. They're on cruise control, made some nice moves at the deadline to pick up some bullpen help. 61-49, 9 games up on the Minnesota Twins.
9 times.
Minnesota Twins have actually played better baseball lately, but they were
only 6 games under now.
So terrible earlier in the season that their record is still pretty bad, 52-58. The Detroit Tigers 47-65, 15 games behind the first place Cleveland Indians. And then the Chicago White Sox and Kansas City Royals bringing up the rear in the AL Central. 20.5 and 27.5 games out of first place, respectively. The Royals have lost 4 in a row. The Chicago White Sox have won 4 in a row.
Surprisingly quiet.
You know why the Chicago White Sox have won 4 in a row? It's because they just played the Kansas City Royals.
Yeah, I figured. Surprisingly quiet at the deadline, the White Sox were.
Yeah.
Over to the AL West, the defending world champion Houston Astros. Losers today at the hands of Walker Buehler and the LA Dodgers. 71-42, 628 winning percentage. They are losers.
They're a little banged
of
up
the last
right now.
6 out of 10.
They are a little
Jose
banged up.
Altuve.
Altuve's down. George Springer left today's game with some discomfort in his thumb. He's been a little banged up the last week or so.
And look who's
X-rays were negative. Lance McCullers on the DL.
yeah, I saw that too. With elbow tightness, that doesn't always equate to a really good thing, especially for somebody that throws as many curveballs as Lance McCullers
And
does.
their run differential is now plus 199, but the Boston Red Sox are catching up. They're plus 190.
Somebody had to be the odd man out of that rotation and go to the bullpen anyway, so...
yeah, you just hope it's not a long-term thing. You hope it's not a
absolutely.
Tommy John surgery.
Because that's a guy that helps you in the long run. He's an upgrade
And
over Luck.
he was really important in their postseason run coming out
Sure
of the
enough
bullpen.
was. Yes. Sure enough was. So the Houston Astros leading that division, but their lead is thinning, and not to the Seattle Mariners. It's to the
Look at that.
surging
4 games
Oakland
back.
Athletics. 2 weeks ago, we noted how they were surging in a 10-game stretch.
Could we possibly be looking at a Houston Yankees play-in game, a wild card game? I don't think so, but it's getting closer to being a reality.
If the Athletics do that, if they continue to do this, you could see it.
They're 21 games above 500 now, all of a sudden.
7-3 in their last 10 winners, a 6 straight. Only 4
Looking
games
good.
back.
Bob
4
Melvin.
games back. A plus 59 run differential, and the last time that we had spoken about them, when they were actually in 4th place.
Yeah.
Behind the Angels.
I see something
They had a
interesting happening in that
60.
division.
A negative 60 run differential. They've flipped it to being almost plus 60 in a matter of 3 or 4 weeks. Outscoring opponents, timely hitting. Nothing more you can say about the hottest team in Major League Baseball, aside from the Red Sox, the hottest team in Major League Baseball, the Oakland Athletics. Right behind them at 6.5 games out, and a pretty good 64-48. Good for third in that division is Seattle. Seattle's fading a little bit, and 64-48 with a negative 19 run differential. That's really hard to do. 3-7 in their last 10, so scuffling Seattle Mariners, hoping to pick it up. Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim, don't call me. The California Angels are 3 games under 500 and slowly sinking like a rock. News and notes out of L.A. for Anaheim manager Mike Scioscia, going to hang up the Spurs at the end of this year.
That's per Ken Rosenthal. Scioscia did make a statement today, and he said that was not true. He was going to reevaluate things after the season. But
he's gone. Ken Rosenthal
is the best in the business.
Yes.
Ken Rosenthal, Jason Stark, Peter Gammons, those guys, when they report something, there's truth to it. They're not just putting hearsay out there. Somebody legitimate told Ken Rosenthal that Mike Scioscia's hanging him up, and it's going to happen. He came out and said that's not true. Maybe that's not true because he hasn't publicly said it today, but yeah, at the end of the season, I would be shocked, given that Ken Rosenthal was the one breaking that report, that Mike Scioscia would be hanging up the managing cleats, at least in L.A. He's got to be sick of all the arm injuries. Tyler Skaggs back on the DL. He needs a fresh start somewhere.
UCLA.
I don't think he's done managing, but he needs a fresh start. He needs to go somewhere.
He does. The organization is in disarray right now with all the injuries. They're sinking like a rock in that AL West. They have virtually no hope of making any kind of playoff run, especially given the strength of their division and their league. So it's a good move for Scioscia if he's actually doing that. The Texas Rangers bringing up the rear. Made a move at the deadline, getting rid of Keone Kela, shipping him off to Pittsburgh. Joe Leclerc pitching good.
Yeah. They've been playing better
spot.
as of late.
And Rugi Odor is worth mentioning.
Fire.
He is absolutely on fire.
He's one of the hottest players in the game.
Playing to like an 11-15 OPS over the last 30
one more
days.
quick AL West note is Houston Astros pitcher, former Toronto Blue Jays closer Roberto Osuna returned. He was activated from his suspension. I don't know if he pitched today, but he was.
And
he's on the active roster. He had a closed door meeting with his teammates to address, the allegations, and we'll see how that goes. That could be an interesting situation. You got Hector Rondon, who's been lights out there. You got this guy coming in who has this dark cloud hanging over his head of domestic abuse charges, and. You got to wonder what the players would think if they just start throwing Osuna out there as the closer. when Rondon is one of their guys. He's been there since the beginning of the season and really picked up.
Nobody
for
can
Ken Giles.
seem, it's like nailing Jello to the wall trying to nail down that closer's position in Houston. And you think that they would absolutely rock solid address it with something non-controversial like Osuna
and this
is.
Could be if Osuna ends up getting installed as closer, and I think it would take some time. I don't think it would be an immediate change. You could
look how quick they changed between Giles and Rondon.
Yeah, well, I think
and
that's
Davinsky
different.
and Peacock.
That's different with a guy coming off an 80-game suspension.
Yes, I totally agree with you.
But
totally.
But Hector Rondon could potentially, for the second time in his career, lose his closing gig to a domestic abuse, or at least alleged domestic abuser.
For sure.
So, yeah.
Second time in the last 3 years.
The guy just goes out there and pitches and does his job and possibly has it taken right away from him. But we'll see. Maybe that won't be the case. Maybe Osuna's the 8th inning guy. We'll just have to watch and see how it plays out in the coming weeks.
The AL standings brought to you by Utica Club. When in Utica, always say UC for me.
The first beer served after Prohibition.
Moving on over to the National League East.
The NL East, the Philadelphia Phillies on top of the division still. They're winning. Let's see, that 5 in a row now. They're winning some games. They're playing good baseball. They made some decent, kind of under the radar. Maybe not necessarily under the radar. Maybe that's the wrong term, but not necessarily huge splashes. But some nice pickups there too at the deadline. The Atlanta Braves kind of in the same boat. Some nice pickups. Again, didn't get a lot of press, but they definitely improved themselves. They're 1.5 games behind the Philadelphia Phillies. Washington Nationals, the disappointing Washington Nationals.
Playing better ball, though.
Playing better ball.
7-3 in their last time.
Did you see last night? I sent you a message. Bryce Harper got hit with a curveball. It was like an 82-mile-an-hour curveball right off. I think it was his knee.
That doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good at 45.
They eventually took him out of the game. He stayed in the game. He went in the outfield, and then the next inning he just couldn't do it. He was in too much pain. So a couple innings later, Ryan Madsen drills Joey Votto with a fastball, and Joey Votto was pissed. I had never seen Joey Votto so worked up in an legitimate angry way. He was walking to first base just yelling out at Madsen. He was just going, "Really? Really?" Because there was obviously no intent to Bryce Harper getting plunked. And he goes out there and he drills Votto, and Votto was pissed. He gets out to first base. He was still...
I like Joey Votto.
Still just yelling out at Madsen, and he was talking to the Nationals first baseman, basically being like, "Come on, are you kidding me?" I mean, there was obviously no intent with an 82-mile-an-hour curveball that got away from the guy and happened to hit Harper in the knee. So that was kind of entertaining to watch. I don't know if there's any more heated exchanges today in the series finale, but I was kind of wondering if that might have been a little bit of lighting the fuse for something big to happen. And I don't think anything did, but it sure looked pretty close last night. But yeah, Washington's playing a little bit better ball. They didn't make any huge moves because they are kind of in limbo right now. 3 games above 500, but still only 6
not
games
out
back.
Of that division.
Still only 6 games back.
With the amount of games that they have to play left inter-division, they are not out of that division. The Atlanta Braves and the Philadelphia Phillies have both made moves to make themselves stronger, but they are not juggernauts.
No.
They don't have the talent on their rosters collectively that
both
the Nationals do.
Very good teams. Very good young teams.
They are, absolutely. And that's not a knock against the Phillies or the Braves.
But they're very beatable.
The Braves are a year early, and the Phillies are a great surprise given that Odubel Herrera, up until December, was the only contracted player on the team not under organizational control.
But on that note, you're right. I mean, the Nationals are 6 games back, and with Scherzer, and I don't know what Strasburg's status is.
Strasburg is just a big question mark.
I don't know what his status is, but Tanner Roark has really picked it up in the last several starts. He's been going deep into games and giving them very good quality starts. Obviously, Scherzer, we don't have to say anything more about Max Scherzer. Gio Gonzalez kind of needs to get it together a little bit. You might hear his name in a segment later in the show. They're definitely still is a chance. 6 games over, more than a month and a half, a month and 2/3, we'll say. Even more than that, there still is time, but they are running out of time. They really are. The New York Mets at 45-64.
Oh, the Mets.
The Mets.
The Mets.
Poor Jacob deGrom. I was watching his start the other night. Again, another just dominant start, and he could just get no run support. At one point, the other team hit one out to right. It was the Braves hit one out to right field, and Jose Bautista's out there, and he just puts his glove up, and it just bounces right off the thumb of the glove, and a couple runners ended up scoring because of that error, and Jake deGrom gets another loss. I sent you a stat the other day. I'll have to see if I still have it.
Yeah, no, I got it right in my head.
Yeah, so
I have it in my head.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just about to mention it anyway.
The Braves. So Jacob deGrom against the Braves.
Jacob deGrom this year against the Braves.
The Braves are
5-0 against Jacob deGrom. Jacob deGrom has a 1.09 ERA in those 5 games. 1.09, and they are 5-0. You cannot go out and pitch any better than Jacob deGrom has been pitching, and he is 5-7. 5-7. When the most impressive stat to come from your team is something so negative as 1.09 ERA and 0-5 against an interdivision opponent, 1.09 ERA, it's astounding. The most positive stat to come out of Mets land this week was Jose Reyes becoming the first player in Major League Baseball history to surrender 2 home runs in one game and in the very next game hit 2 home runs. So when that's the most positive stat
I think
out of your organization,
would he give up 6 runs?
We're going to talk about the Mets coming up here later on in the 7th inning stretch, I'm sure. They had opportunity to really make an impact here in July and August, and certainly not in the standings or on the field, but they had an opportunity to impact their franchise in ways,
especially with the lack of top end starting pitchers that were truly on the market.
They had 3 of them.
They had 3 of them that they could have just gotten a wealth of prospects. They could have rebuilt their entire system in one day.
2 trades, 3 trades
in a couple days.
Yep, and not to mention,
and it would have been
they have role players that needed to go.
It would have been top end talent too. Top end talent.
You're looking at the highlight for Mets fans or the Mets organization this year is the eventual September call up of Tim Tebow. That's the highlight. Starting off 11-0 and calling up Tim Tebow. If I had told you that, Mets fans, the first week of the season, the first 2 weeks of the season, when you're like 12-2, that the highlight of your season at the end of it is going to be Tim Tebow, the lone representative in the AA All-Star game. So your farm isn't that thick either. You got some work to do. They need to go out. First thing that they need to do. Rocky Fiola, I'm sorry, man.
Hey, buddy. Rocky's buddy. He's a Mets fan.
He understands if he's a Mets fan that some things need to happen. First of all, you need to get rid of the 3-headed monster that is your GM. Omar Minaya and JP Ricciardi, they already did their jobs driving organizations into the ground. Omar Minaya was this blessing in disguise for the Expos for 2 seasons when he headed the ship where they were moving to the Nationals and trying to get their payroll down, and they were owned by Major League Baseball at a certain point in time. That's his claim to fame, Omar Minaya. He's terrible. He ran the Mets into the ground already once. JP Ricciardi did it with the Toronto Blue Jays. Get rid of these guys. Get rid of the Wilpons. That's what needs to happen. It's a sad state of affairs.
Rocky says instead of getting new players, they decided to get new fans.
Yeah. Well, they're doing a damn good job of getting new fans.
They're cleaning house on their fans.
I would have jumped. Right? I would have not been a Mets fan through all this. They had an opportunity to control this market, and they didn't. Bottom line, we saw the return on guys like Machado. We saw the return.
Archer.
We saw the return for Archer. We saw the return for Andrew Miller and Aroldis Chapman 2 years ago. We see these returns coming back. We saw a great return for Brad Hand this year. A 1-for-1 player, but the Padres managed to get themselves another top 100 prospect. Why can't the Mets go out and do that? They could have controlled the entire market with DeGrom, Syndergaard, Wheeler. They just chose not to. And they rested on the fact that something that we had alluded to in previous shows, why wouldn't you want to start next season with DeGrom, Syndergaard, and Wheeler? I understand that, but that alone is not going to, as you can tell, Jacob deGrom, that alone is not going to win you ball games. You need to cross the plate more than twice a
Yeah,
game.
you can have a sub-2 ERA and still only have five wins in the fifth month of the season.
It's disgusting. So many things need to happen in Mets land that it's not even funny. And we're being hard on the Mets because the Mets are being hard on themselves. They're not doing themselves any favors. They missed the boat. The winter meetings should be very interesting for the Mets because if they can't come up with money for the payroll to sign all of these guys that they need, they're going to go in with these three guys again into spring training rather than trading them at the winter meetings and giving up for a year like the Marlins are doing. The Marlins waved the flag.
Marlins, speaking of, they're 46 and 67, one game behind the Mets.
They waved
last
the
place.
flag. Admittedly so, in the winter meetings, they said, we're done, we're in rebuild mode, and they are a game behind the Mets, who spent. The Mets spent this winter meetings.
Not even in the winter meetings. They were going out and getting Jose Bautista, and they were doing things in season.
Jay Bruce and Todd Frazier, they spent money. Yoenis Cespedes,
Adrian Gonzalez,
another one, because that was going to be the game breaker right there. But they spent money, and they are one game ahead of a team that waved the white flag in November. Sad state of affairs, and they're going to get leapfrogged by everybody in the National League if they keep this up. Period. So I think, and you think, that the Mets really needed to be bosses at this trade deadline, and they were not. And like you said, the Miami Marlins closing up that NL East. So over to the NL Central, off on our Mets tangent. Sorry, Mets fans. The Chicago Cubs at 64 and 47, one game better than the Milwaukee Brewers at 65 and 50. Milwaukee 6 and 4 in their last 10, so virtually since they made those trades, bringing over Mike Moustakas and Jonathan Scope. The Cubs are 5 and 5, and they did lose today to San Diego.
One more Rocky comment on the Mets. He says they got 2 beans for possibly their best closer ever.
Yeah, right.
I think that might even be a bean and a half, Rocky.
Yeah.
They got 1 bean and a half.
Jack's mom sent him to the market to get a cow. He came back with a handful of beans. There is no magic beanstalk in Flushing, Queens. I will guarantee.
They got him from Billy Bean, too. Billy Bean handing out beans. For closers.
Beans. Bean balls. Because they got balls, the Mets. Terrible. Sorry, Rocky. If you keep bringing it up, Rocky, I gotta keep going back to the Mets. The St. Louis Cardinals, makers of some deals to shed some guys at the trade deadline, 58 and 54. The Pittsburgh Pirates, 57 and 55. Don't count them out. Don't count out the Pirates. Making a move for Chris Archer to bolster that rotation.
I like it.
It is a bold move.
They gave
That's
up a
win
lot,
now move.
but I like
and he's
seeing
under
the
control.
Pittsburgh Pirates doing that. Traditionally, a team that has been content with just kind of sitting back and making money. It's good to see the Pittsburgh Pirates going out there and making a bold move like that and bringing in Chris Archer. They also went out and got Keone Keela from the Texas Rangers. So, it's good to see. They went on a complete tear, won, 10 games in a row or something like that, 9 or 10 games in a row. Struggling a little bit. They've lost a couple in a row now. But like you said, don't count the Pirates out.
No. Don't do it.
They're alive and
playing
well.
Good ball. 4 and 6 in their last 10. I understand. They lost their last 2, but were playing at an insane level prior to that in probably a 15-game stretch. The Cincinnati Reds closing up the NL Central at 49 and 63. Very, very, very respectable considering their start. Jim Riggleman doing a hell of a job there in Cincinnati. Surprisingly quiet the Cincinnati Reds were at the trade deadline. They must think that they have a shot.
Yeah, they held on to Iglesias. They held on to Scooter Gennett. They held on to a lot of the guys.
Scooter Gennett apparently
had been rumored to be
receiving a confirmation from the front office saying that you're not going anywhere. You're our guy. We're going to keep you around. They have a great, talented core. It's tough to see them that many games under 500, 14 games under 500 there for Cincinnati. It's tough to see a team with that lineup. The pitching was always a concern, but maybe Cincinnati can go out and be players this offseason and bolster some pitching. They do have Hunter Green on the way as well there in Cincinnati, so some other up and coming.
Hunter Green, I believe, did just get injured. I don't know how serious it is.
I haven't noticed. So
I don't know how serious it is, but I think it was. I'm thinking it's not like a Tommy John type of thing. Hopefully it's nothing serious and he'll be good to go. if not later this season, by the start of next season.
So over to the NL West to close out this rundown of the standings here.
The NL West, we've got quite the race going on right now with the Arizona Diamondbacks and the Los Angeles Dodgers tied at 62 and 51 atop that division. You got to think the Dodgers will run away with it. They had a really good stretch there about 2-3 weeks ago to push themselves up to the top of the division after a very slow start. The moves they made at the deadline, you have to think the Dodgers are still the overwhelming favorites here. But the Diamondbacks are playing good baseball after they had a pretty rough stretch themselves. So tied at the top of the division and only 2 games back, and would probably be right there tied with those other teams if it wasn't for some Wade Davis meltdowns in the bullpen recently. Only 2 games back. They've been playing good baseball aside from some bullpen blow-ups. And then you got the Giants that are only 5 games back. They're only 1 game above 500, but they are only 5 games back. Don't count them out. And the young San Diego Padres in last place at
the Padres
18
are coming. The Fathers, the Friars, whatever you want to call them, the Padres are coming. They're coming like the Cubs did. You look over in this NL Central,
or the Astros,
right? You look over in this NL Central or the AL West, and you see what the Astros and the Cubs are, and they're mainstays amongst the top of their division and their league, all doing what the Padres did, and maybe not as good as the Padres have done it. Only time is going to tell, and prospects are just that. They're prospects. But with 11 guys in the top 100 in their organization now, not every single one of those guys is going to be a miss. And the Padres are coming. Just watch. They're coming.
So that's it for the standings.
18 and a half, probably not going to be coming this year.
No.
So we're going to switch sides here. We're going to move over into the league leaders. Your AL batting average leader still up at the top is Mookie Betts at 341. Jose Altuve, the injured Jose Altuve, who is already scheduled, I don't know if you mentioned this earlier, but already scheduled to miss the whole San Francisco series.
Yeah, best case scenario, he'll be back at the end of the week.
Yep. So 329 at number 2 in the AL. JD Martinez, just on an insane level. We're going to mention him in the next 3 or 4 segments or leaderships here. He's just a Triple Crown threat right now. 325 for the Boston Red Sox. Manny Machado still in 4th in the AL at 315, even though he's playing shortstop for the Los Angeles Dodgers. 315. He is qualified in the AL still. And Gene Segura dropping a little bit, but still at a very respectable 309. Good for 5th in the AL. Over to the National League batting average.
And real quick, Mookie Betts playing second base yesterday too.
I loved it.
National League batting average leaders, surging Christian Yelich at top of the leaderboard now at 326. He's really starting to get his name into possible MVP consideration here. On top of the NL with a 326 batting average. Nick Markakis of Atlanta, 319. Freddie Freeman of Atlanta at 316. Corey Dickerson of the Pittsburgh Pirates at 314. And the aforementioned Scooter Gennett of the Cincinnati Reds, top 5 at 310.
Your AL home runs leader, JD Martinez of the Boston Red Sox with 33, tied with Jose Ramirez of the Cleveland Indians, the hamster, at 33 home runs. Chris with a K Davis in Oakland with 31, because the other Chris, all he does is K. Mike Trout, 30. Mike Trout banged up. There's some news and notes that we haven't talked about. The best player in the game banged up, missed the last 4 games, missed the entire series with the Indians there, with a jammed wrist, sliding to third base, trying to steal a bag. So come back, hurry up. Joe Boo needs a refill, Mike Trout. We need you back. Nelly Cruz with the Seattle Mariners with 29, good for 5th.
In the NL, Matt Carpenter is tied for the lead in home runs in the National League with 29 now. Matt Carpenter is since the middle of May, has just put up video game numbers, now 29 home runs. Nolan Arenado also at 29.
Nolan Arenado, Mr. Roboto.
Bryce Harper with 26. Jesus Aguilar with 26. And Eugenio Suarez with 26 at number tied for 3. Over to your AL RBI leaders.
Your AL RBI leader is JD Martinez.
Surprise, surprise.
Triple Crown threat, JD Martinez of the disgustingly awesome Boston Red Sox this year. It's just not even fair. Already with 91 RBIs. So 325, 33, and 91 for JD. Potentially, we didn't mention him as our MVP. Nobody had him in our MVP. But if you don't have JD Martinez in your MVP talk, you might want to put him there.
He's in it, but I think his teammate might have him beat Mookie
Which
Betts.
I totally agree with you, but you got to mention
the numbers
JD
are
Martinez.
ridiculous.
They are ridiculous. Chris Davis with a K, Oakland, 86 RBIs. Jose Ramirez, another MVP candidate with 82. Edwin Encarnacion with the Indians as well with 76. And Nelly Cruz with 71. Over to your NL RBI leader.
Javi Baez at the top of the leaderboard with 86 RBIs. Eugenio Suarez of the Cincinnati Reds right behind him at 85. Now, if you had those two guys as your RBI leaders on August 5th, I'd like to see the sports almanac that you went into the future and brought back.
Almanac.
Nolan Arenado with 81. Trevor Story with 79. And Jesus Aguilar with 77. Over to your AL wins leaders.
Over to the pitching. Corey the Kluber with 14 wins.
The gem yesterday.
Luis Severino is stuck on 14. Rick Porcello with another guy with an absolute gem with 14 wins. Carlos Cookie Carrasco with 13. Had a gem earlier in the week as well against the Minnesota Twins. I think he went 8 innings with 2 hits and 10 Ks. And Marco Gonzalez sneaking up on a leaderboard. Marco Gonzalez of the Seattle Mariners with 12. Your NL wins leader, I bet everybody out there can guess.
Max Scherzer, surprise, with 15 wins, leading the NL. Aaron Nola, Zach Greinke, John Lester, and Zach Godley, all with 12, are the next 4 on your leaderboard for the NL wins. One quick note about Marco Gonzalez. He got really ticked off in that Toronto-Seattle series. I don't know if you saw that. There was a whole bunch of Canadian fans.
You mean the Toronto home game?
Yeah, there was a whole bunch of Canadian fans that came down.
Yes, it's the Trek. It's the annual Mecca, and it's actually pretty awesome.
And bought a whole bunch of unsold seats that Mariners fans hadn't purchased. And he made some comment about Toronto fans coming in and taking a dump on our home turf or something like that. And
hey, listen, if you want your home turf to be your home
buy
turf,
tickets, go to the game.
Put Seattle Mariner fans' asses in the seats.
To me, that makes it more fun. You get like a whole group of fans from another team coming in, but
I agree.
Yeah, he apparently doesn't like it.
Dave Elephant checking in. I don't know if he's still sitting there. Hi, Dave. Dave, actually, speaking of home turf, Dave is a diehard Yankee fan, and he went to a game at Boston this week. He went to Fenway. So he can probably relate to the Toronto fans coming down. All Toronto fans, they stretch across that entire country, obviously. So last time I checked, British Columbia is just above Seattle. So it's not that far. It's like New Jersey and New York, right? It's not that far. They crossed over what? The Puget Sound?
And that's Canada's team. They have one team since the Expos left to go to Washington.
So how can you hate
Canada's team?
How can you hate on them? That's the closest they're ever going to get to being at a Toronto game is coming to Seattle.
Yeah.
How can you shit on them?
Yeah.
So for the Toronto fans...
Yeah, and Toronto's having a bad year, too. It's
right. They get a round of applause here. They do.
Toronto's not having a good year, and they still made the trek to Seattle to watch their team. So good on them.
Yeah.
Over to your AL ERA leaders.
AL ERA leader is... the aforementioned DL resident, Chris Sale at the Boston Red Sox at 2.04. Justin Verlander at 2.19. Blake Snell, the lefty from Tampa, 2.27. Trevor Bauer having a fantastic year for the Indians, 2.34. And another Indian, Corey Kluber at 2.63.
Snell off the DL. Snell made his first start off the disabled list yesterday, I believe.
In the AL. 5 guys on the leaderboard under 3, almost to 2.5. There's almost 5 guys under 2.5 in the AL, and they're all on contenders. Other than Blake Snell, they're all on contenders. Crazy. Your NL and Major League earned run average leader. I'm just going to do this one, and then you can go from there. 1.85, Jacob deGrom. Poor Mets fans.
1.85.
1.85.
It's been
5 and 7.
It's been this way the entire season too.
It's 5 and 7. 5 and 7.
1.85. What a phenomenal, amazing. They should just give him the Cy Young Award just because of what he's had to put up with this season. They really should. A Cy Young Award winner with 5 wins. Number 2 in the NL is Old Hoss Radbarn, a.k.a. Max Scherzer with 2.33. Aaron Nola at 2.37, Miles Mikolas at 2.75 of the St. Louis Cardinals, and Zach Greinke having a great year too of the Arizona Diamondbacks with 2.96. Over to your AL saves leaders, and the guy that's been on top of that leaderboard by a whole bunch the whole season.
Edwin Diaz with 41 saves. On pace for 60 saves.
And you know what? That negative run differential for the Seattle Mariners, for them having a very good season, what's that tell you about what Edwin Diaz is doing this year?
Disgusting.
That's all Edwin Diaz, them having a negative run differential and being in a wild card spot, or now just outside a wild card spot.
Yeah, that's all on Edwin Diaz. Craig Kimbrell with 33. Aroldis Chapman with the New York Yankees with 29. Blake Trinan having a great year for the hottest team in Major League Baseball with 28. And Keone Kela still hanging out at number 5 in the AL saves leader, even though he is currently at the back end of the bullpen for the Pittsburgh Pirates. Your NL saves leader.
Kenley Jansen with 31 at the top, a guy that struggled out of the gate but has turned it around and is having himself a very good year after all. Wade Davis also has 31. He is struggling mightily lately. Still tied for the NL lead in saves. Brad Boxberger of the Arizona Diamondbacks with 26. Felipe Vasquez, another one that's having a great year with 25. Brad Hand still on the NL leaderboard with 24, and he's picked up a couple saves for the Cleveland Indians now too.
Using them in matchup situations, very smart.
Over to your AL WAR leaders.
Back on top with a vengeance after being supplanted since our last show. Jose Ramirez had at one point taken over the AL WAR lead, and Mike Trout surged past him. Now getting kind of caught because he's been out for 4 games, but 7.9 wins above replacement for Mike Trout. Jose Ramirez at second at 7.2. Mookie Betts with 6.8. Francisco Lindor 6.3, and Matt Chapman of the Oakland Athletics,
one of the best defenders in the game.
6 wins above replacement would be good for the lead in the NL WAR department.
Number 1, you got Lorenzo Cain at 5.4. Another one of those.
Nipping on his heels is
Matt Carpenter. Again, I can't say enough about what Matt Carpenter has done.
Leads the NL in home runs. He's got to be close in RBIs. I only got the top 5 in front of me, but
he's been hitting leadoff a lot of the time too.
Matt Carpenter, 29 homers and almost leads the NL in WAR. Way to come back.
He was batting like 150 in the middle of May.
Yeah,
and he's up to about 280 with just great numbers. He's having a great season. So he's second at 5.1. Freddie Freeman of the Atlanta Braves at 4.7. Javi Baez, 4.5. And Nolan Arenado at 4.3.
That's the rundown. All
right.
I think
good stuff. Good stuff, man.
We're going to get into...
Covered a lot of...
There you go. We're going to get into the haps on the haps. So each week we like to highlight the news and notes for Ian and Jay Happ, and this week it just happens to be a little newsworthy.
It does. So Jay Happ...
That's not meant to play. Not meant. Any RBI baseball fans out there, you'll recognize that. That's just about when you're about to drop 102 on somebody with Mike Scott or Nolan Ryan.
Or drop a bunt out to the outfield fence and hit a home run.
Yes.
So, yeah, very newsworthy week for J-Hap, at least. Coming over to the Yankees. He made his first start with the Yankees, and it was a good one. 6 innings, got the win. Only 2 strikeouts, but his whip was 0.67, ERA of 1.50 in that start. So it was a very good debut for him. And then the bad news hit that he is now the latest pitcher following the Noah Syndergaard path to have hand-foot-mouth disease. So he missed his last start. He's on the disabled list, but it sounds like he's going to be back this week. I want to say Thursday maybe. They're targeting for his return to the rotation, and if it's similar to what Thor went through, similar to what Syndergaard went through, that timetable for his return should be right on target because Syndergaard is back now, and hopefully J-Hap will be back this week.
Worth mentioning about the Coxsackie virus is that, especially in adults, it can get bad enough to where you lose fingernails. You get lesions and sores on your hand. It's appropriate.
Oh, it is a nasty virus.
So, it's not predictable. Not predictable what could happen. It's case by case. So we're hoping for the best there for J-Hap. Moving on over to Ian Happ. What's Ian Happ up to?
Ian Happ is not having such a good week. He's 1 for 13, scored 2 runs. He's got 2 RBIs. He's only got 1 single all week. So not a good week for him. He's struggling. So I guess you could say Ian Happ is the unhappy Happ of the week.
The unhappy Happ and the happy Happ. I think they both got to be unhappy.
Yeah, I was going to say J-Hap after his first start with the Yankees.
Great start with the Yankees.
Was a happy Happ, but yeah, hand-foot-mouth disease will make him an unhappy Happ. So at least Ian Happ has that going for him. He doesn't have Coxsackie. So that's the Haps.
That's the Haps on the Haps. Moving on.
The Haps on the Haps brought to you by Nick Pasalacqua and Associates. For legal help quick, you better call Nick. Call attorney Nick Pasalacqua and the team at Pasalacqua and Associates. 315-500-NICK. That's 315-500-NICK. Check out his website at cnytriallaw.com. All right.
It's time for 3 Up, 3 Down.
Time for 3 Up, 3 Down.
3 Up and 3 Down. SPG's weekly segment about who to stay away from in fantasy baseball and who to go towards. He's going to give you 3 players in each category. You ready for 3 Up, 3 Down? We got something.
Let's do it. 3 Up, 3 Down. So the first guy I got is a Tampa Bay Ray. He's a young player that just got called up maybe a little bit more than a month ago, probably close to 2 months ago now. He's eligible at first base and outfield in Yahoo. And that's Jake Bauers having himself a nice little season. He's in 185 at-bats. He's got 9 home runs, 28 RBIs. He's stolen 4 bases. He's got an OPS of 838. So he's having a good couple months in his Major League debut season. He is only owned in 27% of Yahoo leagues. So there's definitely opportunity to go and pick him up if you need a utility guy or a bench player. Even if you need an outfielder, you can plug him in when he's on his hot streaks. And he's had some lately. Looks like a pretty good young player for the Rays. So we got Jack Bauers. The next player is also a Tampa Bay Ray, and that is a guy they just picked up from the Pittsburgh Pirates, and that's Tyler Glasnow. And Tyler Glasnow he's a guy that was once probably the top, at least pitching prospect in all of baseball for Pittsburgh.
They got a king's ransom back for him.
He was one of the highly regarded arms in baseball and dominated the minor leagues, just breezed through the minor leagues, just ridiculous strikeout numbers. And when he got up to the majors with Pittsburgh, it just wouldn't come all together for him. He was having problems with walks, putting too many people on base, still was striking out guys, but he had really bad numbers and couldn't make that adjustment. Pittsburgh put him in the bullpen. He had a decent run as a reliever for Pittsburgh. Still very young, too. So they picked him up in the Chris Archer trade. And he had his first start with them the other day. I think he only went 3 or 4 innings because they're going to stretch him out because he had been pitching in the bullpen. But he's somebody to look at as a deep flyer guy, maybe a streamer or something that could help you down the stretch. So Tyler Glasnow, and I think he is only owned in like 6% of leagues. So there's definitely opportunity there.
I like it when we got guys that are only like underneath 10%.
Yeah, I mean, so far you got Bauers at 27% and Glasnow at 6%. So these are guys you can go pick up. They're out there. The next guy, he's not quite that low in ownership, but he's only at 56%, and he is easily one of the hottest players in baseball right now that isn't really getting his due. Cole Calhoun, I mean, for his horrible,
he's been on fire.
For as horrible of a start he had,
been on fire.
He has been on fire. I mean, he's hitting home runs every other game. He's in his overall stat line doesn't look too great. I mean, he's only batting 206 on the season, but if you go look at his splits, he is on fire right now, and that tells you. I mean, it's a guy that's batting 206, and he's 56% owned. So that tells you people have caught on. Don't look at the season overall numbers and look what this guy is doing right now. And he's one of the hottest players in baseball. So he's another one worth a pickup if you need to plug somebody in the outfield. You know, if you're a George Springer owner, if Springer misses some time and Cole Calhoun's on the waiver wire, maybe that's your plug and play replacement until Springer comes back. So that's your 3 up.
Over to the 3 down side. Who are we staying away from
Over
this
to
week?
your 3 down. It's rare to have a Boston Red Sox player that would even be considered for the 3 down list. And he is injured right now. And that's their young hotshot third baseman, Rafael Devers. Very disappointing season, and it kind of gets masked.
Tell me about it.
It gets masked by the seasons Mookie Betts and JD Martinez are having, but yeah, I mean for the expectations that were put on this kid coming into the year and what he did last year, I remember watching. I don't know if it was his debut, but it might have been one of the first games he was up. Probably his first game in Yankee Stadium. Him hitting a home run off of Chapman, and I think he had a multi-home run game and. The pedigree is there. The minor league numbers are there. He's still, what is he, only 20 years old, I think. He's a young kid, and he'll come around. But, yeah, for this season, it's almost looking like a lost season for fantasy owners. Maybe he can come around when he gets activated from the DL, because I think that's coming potentially later in the week. That's probably an optimistic look at it. But, overall, batting .245, 15 homers, 52 RBIs. An OPS of only 721. His on-base percentage is only .295. So that's probably the most detrimental stat for Devers, is he's only getting on base at a 29% clip. So Devers, for all the hype and hope surrounding him, he's down.
Strike!
Next up on the 3 down list is Gio Gonzalez of the Washington Nationals. We mentioned earlier in the show that that's a guy that the Washington Nationals just need to come around. It seems to be happening for Tanner Roark now. He's turned his season around, a couple very good, strong starts, and they're going to need that out of Gio Gonzalez, especially with Strasburg out. And he had a good start, too. Like, it was a very promising start for Gio. And he's sitting here with only 6 wins on the season with a 4.04 ERA, 108 strikeouts in 118 innings pitched. So he's under a strikeout an inning. His WHIP this season, it's over 1.5.
That's not good, right?
That's not good, right? So for that, Gio Gonzalez is down.
Right.
2.
The last guy is a New York Met. Sorry, Rocky. Sorry, any Mets fans out there. And it's a player they picked up from the Chicago White Sox, I believe. Anthony Swarzak, bullpen arm, who started looking like he was going to become the closer there. And he is now on the disabled list. And his overall numbers are just horrendous. I mean, he started coming around a little bit. It looked like there might be something positive the Mets can look at after they traded Familia. Okay, maybe Swarzak's coming around. He's got a pretty good history, some good numbers. His overall numbers this year, 0 wins, 2 losses, 6 ERA, 3 saves, 24 strikeouts over 21 innings, and a WHIP higher than Gio Gonzalez at 1.619. So kind of unfair considering it's injury related, but why not? Why not throw a New York Met in the 3 down list? So Anthony Swarzak is down.
Strike!
3.
You're out!
That's 3 down. So 3 up, 3 down. Who was 3 up, 3 down brought to us by?
That was brought to us by our buddy over at Priceless Inspections, Josh Amodio. A good quality home inspection is priceless.
Priceless.
Call Josh Amodio at 315-525-8725 for your next home inspection. He provides in-depth and detailed reports, thorough inspections, and he pays attention to details. Josh has been in the construction business just about his whole life, and he knows the importance of a quality home inspection. Call Josh before you put your home on the market. If you're looking to buy a home or if you just want to update your home, Josh can do all of that for you. Call him today at 315-525-8725. That's 315-525-8725. And on that note, on the Josh Amodio Priceless Inspections note, I've talked about it a few times on the show that I had Josh inspect the home that I purchased last year. And I want to say that might have been a year ago today. So this date in home inspection history, Josh Amodio with Priceless Inspections inspected my home, gave me some great reports and information to help me in the purchase process. And here I am today. After his great advice, I now live in that home. So thank you, Josh.
I got to tell you, I'm really surprised that you didn't have Wade Davis on your list.
Yeah.
I'm really, really, really surprised. Wade Davis has had an abysmal few weeks here.
I was close.
I'm really surprised that one.
Yeah, to kind of hit on the Wade Davis thing, I have Wade Davis on my fantasy team, and he was great for the first month or so after I traded for him. But
I mean,
wow.
like 30 saves and an ERA over 4.
Yeah, well,
I guess
even before the real blow up began, it was in the 3s, and then I don't know what it is now.
It's got to be. It might be over 6.
It's terrible.
Given that he only throws one inning at a time.
I thought about it because I've been keeping a close eye on that dumpster fire. I don't know. Dave had him, so I don't know if he got some Cleveland Indian dumpster fire sparks on him or something when Dave sent him over to me. But it's been pretty bad, and I didn't put him on my list honestly because I did not want to say Wade Davis's name. But here I am talking about Wade Davis, anyways.
Wade Davis. Something's got to go right for the Rockies out there because that's a tough division. Especially
They're
with
only
all
2 games back.
All those, I know, all those pieces that you just got to expect that the Dodgers are gonna kind of just take off out there. Haven't we've been saying that all year?
We say it every week. I think
we say it every week, and they don't. So the NL West remaining very highly competitive out there. What are we gonna do next? Are we at that time now?
I think it's time.
I think we are time to get up and stretch, everybody. It's time for the 7th inning stretch.
It's time for the 7th inning stretch.
This week on the 7th inning stretch, if you're unfamiliar with the show, you haven't seen it, each week Sean and I, we like to list 7 things. We make these lists, and this week is no different. We are going to rank the 7 biggest winners of this year's trade deadline and kind of give you some insight into who's really going to make this stretch run happen. So why don't you start us off with who you got at number 7, Sean?
Let me pull up my list here. At number 7... I have the Atlanta Braves. They didn't make any huge splashes, but they added some nice pieces to a young team without giving up big chunks of their farm system that is just rich in talent.
Yep, Braves going out there and adding Kevin Gausman and Darren O'Day.
Brad Brock.
Brett, yep.
Johnny Venters from the Rays, another one, who used to be an Atlanta Brave.
I said O'Day, sorry.
Yeah, Orioles reliever.
Yep.
The funny thing was the Gausman and the Brad Brock trades were separate deals, actually, a few days apart. And then, I think the Gausman deal might have been one of the last trades before the actual deadline. It was like pretty close to being down to the wire, but
also of note,
not big names.
Adding Adam Duvall there for
another
some
one,
bench pop there.
Add another bat. Some depth now, in case Acuna gets hurt or something happens, or great bat to throw in as a pinch hitter when you're down by a run or something. You get a guy on base. Bringing Adam Duvall in for the pitcher to hit, and that's a good weapon off the bench for sure. Again, not any big splashes, but they did exactly what they needed to do. They were in the conversation for Machado. They were in the conversation for some of these other big names, Chris Archer. But again, they decided it wasn't worth sacrificing their farm system when their future is so bright. Yeah, I mean, it's great that the Braves are in the position they are right now.
Future so bright, you got to wear shades.
It's great they're in the position they are right now. Nobody expected they would be contending for the division title. Deep into the season is August, but here they are, and they made some nice additions. Getting some bullpen, good bullpen guys, and a decent bat, and then Gausman. I mean, we'll see what he does outside of the AL East. I mean, he's another pitcher that has had a history of high potential and some hype around him. His first start didn't go too well, I don't think, for the Braves, but yeah, going over to the NL could be exactly what Kevin Gausman needs.
Button him up. The Braves got Max Fried back this week.
Yep.
Button him up there with Newcomb and Foltynewicz and Gausman and Fried. That's the makings of a kind of a win now scenario for a team with an incredibly bright future.
When I think of Baltimore Orioles top prospect failed pitchers, at least in Baltimore, the big name that
Ben
comes
McDonald.
to mind. Not Ben. Well,
Eric Bedard.
You can go on, but I'm saying who got traded and turned it around. There's one name that comes to mind, and it's Jake Arrieta. And who's to say that Kevin Gausman couldn't go down the same path as Jake Arrieta now that he's in the NL?
A much friendlier league over there in terms of pitchers, and he's in a much friendlier division in that Eastern division.
I like what they did, and part of that is because they didn't go out and get some big names. They got the guys they needed to get for a good price, and put themselves in a solid position to get a playoff spot here. So the Atlanta Braves, I got 7th.
Before I even get into my 7th, I just want to do this little side note on the Orioles. The Orioles are creeping their way back to fair territory. We're going to get them inside the baseline sooner than later. They managed to add something like 12 players to their organization in a series of trades here at the deadline. They didn't handle anything right. We have been vocal on that. They didn't handle this right. They should have handled Machado in a different way to increase the haul, but bottom line is they did what they needed to do in getting rid of Jonathan Scope and Gausman and Brad Brock and Machado. They did what they needed to do. So the Orioles, although not listing on either one of our lists, are certainly creeping their way back into the baseline. Anyway, I'm not ready to call them all back in at 44 games.
They're on the dirt by the dugout.
Out of the division in the first week of August, but
they're now on the dirt by the dugout instead of in the dugout.
So at my number 7, I'm going to go with a team that maybe surprised all of baseball with the moves that they made, and we've mentioned them already on the show, and we've mentioned Chris Archer, and I'm going to go with the Pittsburgh Pirates. The Pittsburgh Pirates went from being under 500 and completely out of the playoff picture to going on a surge just before the trading deadline, or the non-waiver trade deadline. We should be specific. Went on a surge right before that deadline and decided to buy. They got a pitcher under control in Chris Archer, who didn't have the greatest start in his first start with Pittsburgh, but still under control for a few more years. They have a young core there. They've made some moves like the Corey Dickerson move. Grabbing Corey Dickerson, he's probably been their MVP for the year or close to it. So I'm going to rank the Pirates number 7. They went out and strengthened the back end of their bullpen. They did not trade Vasquez. So I think that they did. I think that they did good, and I'm going to rank the Pirates at my number 7.
They did. I didn't.
Keller at the back end of that bullpen too. So
I didn't have them on my list, but that is a team that is in the conversation for sure. And originally, it was a bit of an oversight because I was mostly looking at content. Like, I'm not going to say the Pirates are not a contender per se, at least for a playoff spot, but they belong in this discussion, and they did give up a lot for Archer, but I like the move. I really do like the move, and for the reasons I said when we were going through the standings, when we were doing the rundown, it's good to see the Pittsburgh Pirates making a move like that at the trade deadline, a splash to improve their team. So
for sure,
and
we're going to talk about, well, at least on my list, I'm pretty sure that you probably have them on your list as well. But we're going to talk about the return haul in that deal as well later in this segment here, because Tampa did good. They did. So the Pirates are my number 7. Who you got at number 6 for winners at this year's trade deadline?
Number 6, I have a team in the same state as the Pirates, the Philadelphia Phillies. Another team that I can pretty much say a lot of the things I said about the Braves about. The moves were not high-profile superstar players coming in, but they picked up Asdrubal Cabrera to strengthen the infield depth. And more importantly, he is injured right now, but he should be back soon, I believe, is picking up Wilson Ramos from the Tampa Bay Rays, one of the better catchers in baseball. Adding him for, it was not much. It was a pretty cheap return. And they also picked up a left-handed reliever, Aaron Loop. So I thought they did pretty well. Didn't give up a ton. They did give up one prospect in the Ramos trade that I forget his name. His name escapes me, but he's a somewhat high-profile prospect. But for the price of a starting catcher who could be one of the best in baseball, especially this season with how weak catcher is, offensively anyway, I thought Ramos was a good get for them. So again, no crazy big splashes, no superstars coming in there. But it's another team that did what they had to do, make some moves to strengthen that, bullpen with a lefty catcher and some infield depth.
I like it.
Without giving up a ton.
So before I move on to my number 6, an update from Fenway. We are in the top of the 5th, and we were still tied at 0-0. 5 hits for the Red Sox, scattered by Masahiro Tanaka, and just 3 hits for the Yankees off of David Price. So top of the 5th, 0-0. Yanks and Sox. Moving on,
Rocky chiming in. He said they got Asdrubal Cabrera. Now they have Odubel Herrera and Asdrubal Cabrera. That's quite the duo.
That is quite the insight there, Rocky.
That might need to be a new segment. We should have Rocky chime in every week on the Odubel Herrera and Asdrubal Cabrera update segment.
Tomato. Let's call the whole thing off.
He also said they are the anti-Mets. I'm going to assume you're talking about the Baltimore Orioles with the moves they made to sell off a lot of high-profile guys. There is a little bit of a difference there because most of the guys that the Orioles shipped out are free agents after the season. But, yeah, I get your point. That is kind of what I was thinking, too, is, the Mets just held, and the Orioles just tore it down and just completely overhauled their minor league system in a matter of weeks.
So moving on to my number 6, not even going to talk long-winded about this because we've really touched on all of it during this show. I got the New York Yankees at number 6, and the reason that I have them so low, they did go and address needs, okay? J-Happ was a need. We mentioned that starting pitching was a need.
To jump ahead for me, I have the Yankees at 5, so I'll be talking about them next, so we might as well kind of bundle it together here.
All right, Lance Lynn even, okay, if that was to bolster the back end of your rotation or even have his stuff play up in the bullpen to take that Adam Warren role, which I think was the original intention.
Yeah, I scratched my head a little bit at that one, but with Tyler Austin getting traded, but with Sonny Gray just continuing to be horrendous, that move already. I mean, even though we're a week out from that trade being made, to me that's already looking better and better.
It looks better, but it certainly has made waves.
Yeah.
Already.
Oh yeah.
So, it has ramifications already, that trade. He has supplanted Sonny Gray in that rotation. They go out and they make a peculiar trade for Jake Voigt.
Luke Voigt. Yep.
Or Luke Voigt, not Jake Voigt, I'm sorry. From the St. Louis Cardinals, they shed themselves of Chase and Shreve. But what we mentioned was also in that Chase and Shreve deal was the return of international slot money, international pool money. Basically, each team is given the exact amount of international money that they can go out and sign international free agents.
And they can trade it.
Non-draft eligible, Cuban players and Venezuelan players and all non-draft eligible players. And they have a pool of money, each organization, that they can use as signing bonuses to sign these players. The Yankees have been notorious in the last 3 years for using that international signing pool money is leverage in trades. They have traded it away, and they have received it in trades. So 2 of these trades, the Chase and Shreve trade, most notably, They used that money immediately that day and signed a top international pitcher, 17-year-old Rodriguez there, OCL. So pretty important to not look past the fact that at this deadline, and one of the reasons that I have them on my list, not so much what they did to help the big club, but at this deadline, a team that is squarely in contention for a World Series berth, did everything that they could to strengthen the bottom of their whole organization while still maintaining their top 25 prospects almost intact. Dylan Tate was the only one that cracked that, but as we mentioned with the Dylan Tate trade, he was blocked out. He wasn't going to be on the 40-man. He wasn't going to be protected from Rule 5, so they were going to lose him for nothing anyway.
Yeah, they come out of this deadline with arguably a better farm system. I mean,
rather than a better major league team.
Right. They might have traded a lot of guys that are pretty good prospects. You know, your Billy McKinneys, your Tates.
Well,
but
Billy McKinney, that's another
I mean,
example
you're
of a guy that
talking
was
these kids. They signed these Cuban players. They signed Rodriguez and Vargas. They're teenagers. I mean, they're a long ways away. We'll see what happens, but the ceiling is ridiculously high for these kids. I mean, you could be talking, and I'm not saying he will be, but I mean, there's potential there that Alexander Vargas could be, in 3 years, he could be looked at as Gleyber Torres was looked at 2 years ago. I mean, we don't know, and we won't know until some time passes. But the ceiling and the potential is really, really out of this world for those two kids. Again, it's tough to talk about players that are 5-6 years away and know what they're going to do, and we don't. But yeah, they certainly made some moves to improve their farm system. I mean, it's not even their farm system yet. These kids are teenagers, but yeah, they made the moves they needed to make. Getting a pitcher, a left-handed one, in Jay Happ that has a history of being good against Boston. They picked up Lance Lynn, who is a veteran pitcher. He struggled a little bit at the beginning of the year, but he's come around. Had a pretty good, not start, but coming in for Sonny Gray the other day. Zach Britton, another veteran lefty for that bullpen that makes Chase and Shreve expendable. So I like the moves. I really do. And when you include that international signing money in there, I think they did good. I really do. So, yeah, I mean, some of these guys, Happ and Britton, are going to be free agents at the end of the year, and how you look at those trades will really depend on the Yankees' success in the next month, hopefully 2-3 months. But, yeah, it's a good deadline as of today. I mean, ask me again in a couple months, and it might be a completely different answer. But, yeah, as of right this moment, I like what they did, and I have them 5th.
So moving on to my number 5. I had a team that really is involved in one trade, and they weren't necessarily the winner of that trade. And they're not in contention, but I've talked about them already on the show, and I'm going to rank the San Diego Padres. San Diego Padres showed a lot of gall in trading a controllable arm in Brand Hand at perhaps a time where next year they could be bringing up 5 or 6 of the top prospects in the game and potentially have a Brad Hand at the back end of that bullpen next year because he was under control. But they turned around and they got Francisco Mejia, who was one of the top prospects in the Indians organization.
Yeah.
And ranks now amongst the top prospects in the Padres organization. And they only added to a team that had already had 10 in the top 100. Now has 11 in the updated Baseball America top 100 prospects in the game. So really nothing more to say about the Padres other than that one deal and how impressive, not even necessarily that return, but how impressive that the San Diego Padres have managed to commit to this rebuild the right way. See the blueprint that the Astros laid out and the Cubs laid out. They saw this blueprint and they're doing it. They're doing it. And so for that, they're ranking number 5 on my winners of this trade deadline for one trade and for really only getting a prospect in return.
Right.
They're ranking number 5 because I think they are a winner, not just because of the trade that they made, but because they are sticking to their guns and their ideology, and they are executing that vision. And so the Padres, good job, Padres.
Oh, the future looks great for them.
Good job, Padres. Number 5.
And what's the use in hanging on to Brad Hand when you're not going to be a contender for another couple of years?
For sure.
There was
3
years at best.
They would have been higher on my list had they been the ones. I might have put them number 1. Had they been the ones that landed Chris Archer.
Yeah, they were right in the mix for Chris Archer.
Not because Chris Archer is a great get, or it's a get that, I mean, it is a great get. He's under control, and he's got a live arm, and he's a proven talent. But that would have just made me happy as a baseball fan, because the Padres are so far out of contention, but they are looking to the future to get a guy that is under control at the major league level and a proven talent while you're not in contention. It just gives me the chills. It does. So good on you, Padres. Good on you, fathers. I really like it, and I might become a closet Padres fan over the next few years, just watching them. The same thing that I did with the Astros and the Cubs, where I kind of had this affinity for them over the few years that they were losing 110 games and trying to rebuild, and they all did, and they both won World Series. So will we see a Padres World Series in the next 5 years? Perhaps, because
Maybe.
This is exactly the blueprint that you follow if you want to do that on a low budget.
And it's not to say all these prospects are going to become superstars, but it is at the very least.
Prospects, that's it.
At the very least, it's valuable tradable assets too.
Listen,
you could trade some of these
they
guys
don't make
when you start
that
getting
big
close.
of a mistake on 11 guys.
Right.
Okay.
Oh, there's
so
some of these
guys
will
are
pan
going to
out.
be under control as stars for the Padres.
And some of them will be traded, too.
Absolutely.
I mean, to bring in assets.
But as long as the Padres maintain, they made some, the Eric Hosmer deal made both of us scratch our heads at the amount and the length. So if they can avoid doing things like that, the head scratchers, and do these things that are the utmost positives, they turned a reliever, and it's not to say Mejia is ever going to materialize, but if he does, They turned in perhaps a superstar everyday player from a reliever. And those are the deals that win you World Series 3 or 4 years later. So good on you, Padres. You're at my number 5 as winners at this deadline. Who you got at number 4, SPG?
So that trade, I think, was very good for both teams.
As we're kind of narrowing this down, I think that we're probably going to have the same type teams up near the top, maybe in different orders.
That
so
trade
we're going to be
was,
doing a lot of talking about 4 teams here.
That trade was good for both teams, and I have the Indians at number 4. They didn't make a ton of moves at the deadline, but we had talked for months on their bullpen was a dumpster fire. They needed to do something to fix the bullpen. And they really don't need to do much more than that. They needed to add some outfielders, too, with some of the injuries there, with Zimmer going down and some of the other guys that are banged up there. But, yeah, I mean, getting Brad Hand, who was already closing some games for them, and Simber, too. Let's not overlook Simber. He's a good arm, too. And then bringing in Leonis Martin, having a very good season, an under-the-radar season. Solid outfielder, and maybe he can kind of play that Rajai Davis role, that role that he has played in the past for the Indians. And giving up Mejia, yeah, sure, that's a tough loss, but it was an absolute necessity for that team to go out and get an arm like Brad Hand. And Brad Hand was the best that was available, in my opinion. Zach Britton's good. Brad Hand under control. You got to give up a little bit more. And he's somebody I would trust more in a 8th, 9th inning in a playoff game. But yeah, Brad Hand really is exactly what that team needed to go get, and they went and got him. They paid the price, but they went and got him because they have their sights set on a World Series title. And if they go out and win a World Series, and their bullpen ends up being fixed by this one move, bringing these 2 arms, then, yeah, you look at that trade, of course, great move for the Padres. It makes sense for them, too. But, yeah, again, not a lot of moves, not a lot of movement there, but the ones they made, I think, were huge. So Cleveland Indians, number 4.
So, I mean, I'm going to mention them in a few minutes, but I totally agree with everything you're saying. Addressing needs is more important than making splashes in certain times. although the number one team on my list made more splashes than they did addressing needs. So I'm kind of going to contradict myself, but it's warranting being higher on my list.
Addressing, not to get ahead of ourselves, but those splashes were such big splashes that how can you not put them at the top of the list?
Exactly.
It's a little tease.
But at my number 4, I'm going to go with somebody that didn't address an identified need, identified on this show and pretty much by anybody that's a follower of baseball. You understand that the Milwaukee Brewers needed pitching. What the Milwaukee Brewers did not get was pitching. But what they did do was they went out and they added Mike Moustakas and they added Jonathan Scope.
Yeah.
And they added them to Aguilar and guys like Shaw. You see Travis Shaw playing second base now, and now they go and get Jonathan Scope. So Travis Shaw's kind of the odd guy out there, right? They added it to a simply awesome lineup with Locaine and Christian Yelich. The Brewers have made, if you look at the Brewers team from December to now, and look how different it is. They've added all-stars and former all-stars to that team. 5 if you count. So the Brewers, although not addressing the need, they have a sick bullpen, an awesome bullpen back there, and now have arguably the best lineup in the National League. So the Brewers, I'm going to have the Brewers at my number 4.
I've got the Brewers at number 3.
Okay,
and
you
so
pretty much got the Indians at number 3.
You pretty much covered everything I was going to say, and to talk about that kind of logjam at the infield, what their solution is, and I believe they just started doing that yesterday or today, is Jonathan Scope is being moved over to shortstop. So now you have Moustakas at third. Scope at shortstop, Shaw at second base, and Aguilar at first base, with your occasional Eric Thames at first base. It's very interesting. Now you got a couple guys out of position. We're going to have to keep an eye on it to see how it works out defensively. But as long as it does work out defensively, if those guys if they hold their own in the field, that is a great infield. And they also did
it's a great outfield too.
Yeah, it's outstanding outfield.
An outfield that sees a guy
you got a couple guys that are
30 home runs,
potential MVP candidates in the
30
outfield.
30 home runs at the major league level last year, and he can't even crack onto that roster anymore in Domingo Santana. So good on the Brewers.
Yeah.
Good on the Brewers. And good on the Indians. I'll skip ahead to my number 3.
Just one other name, too, for the Brewers, Joaquim Soria.
I forgot that they added Soria.
So they added some bullpen help as well.
A disgusting bullpen back there with Knievel and Hader and now Soria. You have 3 legitimate closers. So I got the Brewers, and we're going to jump ahead.
And we thought they were going to add starting pitching, and they didn't. But it could have been one of those things, almost like we were talking when we heard maybe the Yankees were interested in Machado. That your main primary need might be starting pitching, but the market is so barren or overpriced that you just go out and you upgrade your team elsewhere, and hope that your own starting pitching can kind of get you by. Go ahead with your next one.
Yeah, well, I got the Indians, just like you just mentioned. So nothing new. We're not going to mention any more names that they went out and added. But if you look at the need that they addressed, literally the only need that team had: outstanding starters, outstanding lineup, 3 MVP candidates, 2 MVP candidates on that lineup. So. I just like that they went out and addressed that need with Brad Hand. Worth mentioning, too, they added Simber as well.
Right.
So they really just went out and addressed that dumpster fire of a bullpen, which was really the only glaring hole.
And Andrew Miller is back from the DL now.
That's what's warranting them being so high on my list, is that when you look at a deadline, you look to address a glaring need, and they did that. They patched up that hole. They did that. So the Cleveland Indians, they're 4th on your list and they're 3rd on my list, and it's warranted. And really, no big splash. It's Brad Hand, but for them, with the lineup that they already had and the talent that they already have on that rotation, 3 or 4 Cy Young candidates as well. Obviously, a talented roster with a problem in the back end of that bullpen. So they addressed that need. Cleveland Indians sitting at number 3, trade deadline winners. And Leonis Martin as well, a needed grab, as Dave has mentioned. So you're right, buddy. But we're on the Indians bandwagon right now, bud. So I got them at number 3. Who you got at number 2?
Number 2, I have a team that's not.
We got to have the same number 2. We got to.
They're not going to make the playoffs this year, but I really like the moves they made.
Tampa Bay Rays?
Tampa Bay Rays acquiring Austin Meadows and Tyler Glass now in the Archer trade. And
Tommy Pham.
And also picking up Tommy Pham. I mean, he is now hurt. He's going to be out for over a month.
He projects when he's at his tip-top level to a top 10 outfielder.
Yeah.
In the game.
I mean, look at the season he had last year. He was in some people's MVP talk. I mean, I'm not saying he should have won MVP by any means, but he was, probably in the top 5, top 10 at least in NL MVP talk last year. We can probably pull up the stats on the voting for that. But he's had an off season this year. He hasn't been quite the electric player he was last year on the base paths, and the power numbers were a little bit down. But picking up Tommy Pham I think was a nice move for them. And not to mention the return.
Glasnow and Meadows
the
are
return
two
they got,
coveted prospects.
The return they got for Archer, Austin Meadows and Glasnow.
These are 2 former top 15 prospects in the game.
If Glasnow can turn it around, he could be better than Chris Archer. He could be better.
And you could be looking at Glasnow Snell for the next 3 years. Yeah. Outstanding on the Tampa Bay Rays, and I'm glad that we both have them so high. For a team that's out of contention, to trade the Wilson Ramos and trade Chris Archer and get the return back that they did and add depth at
they also picked up some bonus pool money. I didn't see if they made any international signings with that. And they have some players to be named later that will be
absolute
that
big
will be coming
ups.
Back to them.
I know we've mentioned this before, but huge ups to Kevin Cash and the job that he does managing a team with no starters. You can weigh in however you want on the opener, but it works for the Rays. They have the lowest ERA maybe in the history of their franchise over the last 100 days or so since they've been doing this opener thing. And they've really found a way to circumvent not having 4 legitimate starters.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Kevin Cash is another guy that should be in that Manager of the Year conversation.
It should be. If it wasn't for Alex Cora.
If it's not for Cora and Melvin.
Boston going to win, and Bob Melvin as well.
Too,
yes.
with what they've done.
Boston going to win 114, 115 games potentially this year if they keep playing the way they are. Alex Cora is going to be. He's just going to be the AL Manager of the Year. But Kevin Cash certainly doing an awesome job down there. And you got to love what Tampa Bay has done at this deadline by shedding themselves of some contracts and some players that they needed to get rid of. Not necessarily Archer because he wasn't signed to anything major. Very, very, very club-friendly post-arbitration contract for the next 2 years. You got rid of a guy that maybe you don't want to get rid of, but the return that they got from Pittsburgh and the total, even from St. Louis and getting Tommy Pham, good for the Rays.
Dave checking into on the Brad Hand pickup, and we mentioned that Hand was under control. I believe he is under contract until I think you're right, Dave. I think it's 2020. I think he's got 2 more years. And Allen and Miller are free agents.
Simber also under control, as far as I remember.
So it's a move for the future as well.
Absolutely.
It's not just this season in mind. It's looking to the future with potentially losing both Allen and Miller. And Indians, you've got your closer lined up now for the next
Indians
3
big
seasons.
winners with just that one trade. I understand Leonis Martin, but just that one trade makes them very big winners because they address that need. So thanks for checking in with that, Dave. I'm glad we both had them at number 2, which only means that we have the same number 1. We have not mentioned the biggest free agent to trade at this deadline, and that was Manny Machado. He was the most coveted or best free agent on this market, and he got traded, in a big way. A 5-player haul for Baltimore in return, but not anybody inside the Dodgers' top 20. One guy inside their top 20. 4 guys outside of their top 20.
Yusniel Diaz was inside their top. I think he was number 4 overall prospect.
So aside from losing Diaz, they managed to hang on to their top prospects. They managed to keep almost their entire top 20 organizationally intact.
Oh yeah, they got him.
They
for
add
a
Manny
pretty
Machado,
good price,
and then
it
they
is a
turn
rental.
around.
It is a rental, but
They turn around and they add Brian
Good price.
Dozier. And as under the radar as that move is, it may prove bigger than the Manny Machado deal for them. So all they did, and like we just said, it's not necessarily, it's addressing a need that's important to be on this list. And the Dodgers, of course, when you add a Machado or a Dozier, you address the need, but nobody said that they absolutely needed a shortstop. Yes, Seager went down, but Chris Taylor was filling in admirably. If you wanted to add to the Dodgers 3 weeks ago, you would have said that you needed to add maybe another arm, maybe bolster the back end of that bullpen a little bit.
yeah, and they did pick up John Axford.
But making the splash in the way that they did for Manny Machado and for Brian Dozier to make essentially a murderer's row out there in L.A., that puts them at the top of my list. And if anybody has improved their stake in this year's World Series more, it's the Dodgers. At this deadline, the Dodgers made the biggest move into being a top contender with their moves.
So from today's news, from the game that the Dodgers played today, they played the Houston Astros, and the headline I just saw was Manny Machado and Brian Dozier help put the Dodgers past the Houston Astros. So that tells you right there,
and my boy Walker Buehler,
why this move was made. Machado had a couple runs, and Dozier had a go ahead 2-run double in the first inning. So. Yeah, that those moves are already paying dividends, and as that team gels a little bit, and we'll see how things fit when Turner comes back. When Justin Turner gets healthy and gets put back at third base, you probably slide Chris Taylor out to the outfield, I assume, and that creates a little bit of an outfield shuffle. But it's a good problem to have, having all those talented bats, and nice start for Walker Buehler as well.
All right, so that's the seventh inning stretch where Sean and I just gave you our best trade deadline winners, our 7 best. I knew that we were going to have an amalgamation of the same 6 or 7 or 8 teams, and we did, but there was some clear-cut winners, and there was one clear-cut loser. And we've already mentioned it a ton of times on the show, and Rocky, if you're still tuning in out there, man, were the Mets losers at this trade deadline or what? When you have the J-Haps and the Nate Eovaldi's being the highlights and the Lance Lynns being the highlights of the pitching available on the market, and then you have a team that's 40 games under or 30 games under 500 with 3 legitimate toward the front line ace-type pitchers available, and you don't trade them, and you don't dictate that entire market looking at the haul, Glasnow and Meadows for Archer, what do you think that you could have gotten for Jacob deGrom or
even
Noah
Zach Wheeler.
Syndergaard or Zach Wheeler? The Mets are, we rank 7 winners. The Mets are the losers here. The Mets are the big losers. The Brewers are on my list as, I had them high too. I think that that's a winning move with Moustakas and Scope, but
I'll throw an honorable mention.
I'm going to throw the honorable mention in for the Brewers as well as kind of being a loser because you didn't address that starting pitching need, and I was disappointed in that. So who's your honorable mention?
Honorable mention in a good way that didn't make my list because their moves weren't, again, big profile guys, but I liked what Boston did, going to get Ian Kinsler, getting a guy with experience, that's been to a World Series. A few
How can
times.
you improve that team?
And getting Nate Eovaldi, there's a way to improve him right there. They improved their starting pitching, and
he's pitched great. He's
pitched great.
We mentioned that earlier on the show. That cutter really suits his game a lot. It moves down. It moves away from the right-handed hitters. It can be really an effective pitch. If Nate Eovaldi can keep the ball down and throw strikes and work fast, he can be an ace. And he has the stuff. They made a bold move, and again, big ups to Tampa Bay for having the balls to go out and trade Eovaldi and Archer and Ramos and get the haul back of 12 or 13 players that they did to revamp their organization too. So a lot of winners, few losers. The Mets definitely
You're out of here.
The losers of this trade deadline. So that's it. That's our 7th inning stretch.
I think that brings us to the last part of our show today.
This is the part of the show that you don't want to be on. Jeff Francisco, my man, he's joined in. Hola, Jeff. Stick around. Might be talking about you in a second. This is Out of the Baseline. This is the list, the part of the show you don't want to be on. You don't want to catch yourself out of the baseline. To start it off, I'm going to keep the Mets officially out of the baseline. They've been out of the baseline every week, and I'm going to keep them officially out of the baseline right now. But who are you starting off with?
Yeah, I think the Mets is a pretty good one. I mean, we pretty much have covered them almost every out of the baseline, I think. I'll throw hand, foot, mouth disease out of the baseline. I'm sick of hearing about that in baseball.
Coxsackie
is out of the baseline.
I'm going to keep somebody in the baseline here. Well, first of all, I won't even touch on this yet because we'll get to that last. First off, I want to throw a Yankee out of the baseline. It's been 2 weeks since our last show because of vacation. Since our last show, I got to witness Gary Sanchez be the epitome of not hustling and cost the Yankees a game with two boneheaded plays in Tampa Bay. Not a good look on you, Gary. You're supposed to be a leader out there, and you don't hustle down. Don't bust it down to try to beat a double play. You don't bust it down the third baseline to pick up. A guy scored from second on a pass ball. You can't have that. You lose a one-run game and a guy scored from second on a pass ball that went up the third baseline.
Yeah, I think that was Bowers.
Gary Sanchez,
the guy that we were talking about earlier.
Yes, Gary Sanchez, you are.
You're out of the baseline.
Out of the baseline, Gary Sanchez. Who you got next, SPG?
This is my last one, and I've got another New York Yankee, and I want to throw Sonny Gray out of the baseline.
Thank God somebody did.
Sonny Gray just being horrendous at everything, and also getting caught up in the whole past insensitive tweets that seem to be popping up quite a bit now.
We're going to get to that in a second.
So Sonny Gray, I don't have much to say about him just because I am sick of talking about how horrible Sonny Gray is. Sonny Gray is out of the baseline.
You're out of here!
My boy, Jeff, with the troll doll. I love it. It's fitting that the troll doll is your profile picture because you are indeed a baseball troll. But your trolling job kind of crossed over outside of the baseline last week when Aaron Judge got hit on the wrist, and that night you commented on a Facebook post that you hope he's hurt, you hope he's injured, you hope he's out.
Oh, come on, man.
Not cool. Heckling is great. Good old-fashioned shit-talking is wonderful.
We love it.
And we love it. And, we if you pay attention to the show and you see the field report, we like to harass people, and we like to keep it lively, okay? But wishing injury upon a star player, Jeff Francisco, wishing that he gets injured, which he ended up being out, not a good look, buddy. And the dog, the limping dog, I know you find this funny, Jeff, and I love it. But you are a troll, and for this week, Jeff, you gotta be out. You might be able to work your way back into the baseline, but this week, Jeff, you're out of the baseline.
Get the fuck out of here.
And my last one, I'm going to put somebody inside of the baseline before we get to our last one. Now, you mentioned that there were some insensitive tweets or a rash of some insensitive tweets that have been going on in
several
Major League
players
Baseball.
getting caught up with this.
Several players. I'm going to get to a tweet or a series of tweets from Washington Nationals injured reliever Sean Doolittle. It's been a couple tough weeks for baseball on Twitter. It sucks to see racist and homophobic language coming from inside of our league. A league I'm so proud to be a part of that I've worked really hard to make a more accepting and inclusive place for all our fans to enjoy. We have to start caring as much about the content of the posts as we do about when they were made and how they came to light. The answer isn't for athletes to leave social media. Social media can be great for an athlete. I met my wife on Twitter. Long story. It helps athletes share their stories and personalities and connect with their communities. Besides, it's not like you can accidentally post a slur.
And if you have Twitter, definitely follow Doolittle. He is one of the best followers.
a very insightful
Brandon McCarthy
comment.
as well. Brandon McCarthy is another one that is an absolute must follow.
That's for Sean Doolittle. Sean Doolittle keeping it classy. You're keeping it inside the baseline, buddy, and we appreciate that.
And he's got a great first name, too. Great first name, Mr. Doolittle.
So, I can't shut the applause off for Mr. Doolittle. It won't let me
It's a standing O.
It's great. Sean Doolittle.
Safe.
You're safe. You're permanently inside the baseline, I think. I don't think that I can throw you out. But who I am going to throw out are Sean Newcomb, Josh Hader again. I already threw you out. And I threw the Milwaukee fans out for giving you a standing ovation. But Josh Hader, you're out. And Sean Newcomb, you're out. And Trey Turner. Trey Turner, you're out of here too.
You're out of here.
Out of the baseline. Stop with the racist shit. Stop with the homophobic shit. And if you are an athlete and you think that you might have posted something wrong when you were 17 or 16 or 19, erase it. Eliminate it. Start a new one. Think about what you tweet. Think about it. Because this does not fit baseball. It doesn't fit any sport.
No, it doesn't fit
but it does not
any walk of life.
It
doesn't fit
baseball,
anything.
And it shouldn't be out there. It's an inclusion sport. There's all walks of life in that dugout. And it deserves to be mentioned that you need to step it up with the content filtering of your own mouths. So all of you that want to use Twitter as a platform for hate, you're permanently out of the baseline.
You're out of the baseline.
Or any platform.
Any platform.
So I think that's it for us.
That's it. That's it for us. Keep it inside the baseline.
Come down
guys.
to Duluth Field on Friday.
Duluth Field, Rome, New York, the old Griffiths Air Force Base. We're going to be doing the Battle of the Bats.
Battle of the Bats.
With the Perfect Game Baseball League, sponsored by our sponsors, Nye VW. Go check out our boy Mike Sacco over at Nye VW if you are in the market for a Volkswagen. Check them out.
We're going to be doing a broadcast live
broadcast.
Starting around 6 o'clock, give or take. That's when the event begins. Hope to see a lot of people out there. And if you can't make it down to Duluth Field, look for us. Look for our broadcast. You will be able to check it out right here. Go to our website, disruptionnetwork.net. Check out all the great content, all the awesome shows. So many good shows on Disruption Network. Make sure you go check it out. There's something for everybody.
Ease, Beats, and Bizz, home free. Lots of shows.
Yeah, the D-Line.
The Disruption Network. And big ups to
of course,
Disruption
EC
Network
Radio.
for giving us this platform to do what we love. I love it.
All right, well, until Friday, we're out of here. And be like Sean Doolittle, please, everybody. Be like Sean Doolittle.
Be like Sean. Everybody should be like Sean Doolittle because it's important to bring clarity to those things. Thanks for keeping it inside the baseline with us, guys. Continue to do so. We'll see you next week, and hope to see some of your beautiful faces next week, next Friday in Rome, New York. Good night, everybody. Thanks for tuning in.
We're
Hey,
out.
Disruption Network. This is Mike Sacco, the general manager at Nye Volkswagen of Rome. If you don't know me by name, it's only because you have not received the best deal. There's only one reason to leave Utica, and that's to come see me in Rome and get the best deal on your next new, pre-owned, or certified VW. Mention that you heard this ad from Disruption Network and receive $250 off your next vehicle purchase. You'll know why our customers say, I love my Nye VW. Come see us at 5865 Rome Taberg Road in Rome, or visit us online at nyvwofrome.com.
The Property Sisters of the Mohawk Valley was born when 3 top producing agents with over 25 years of combined experience selling real estate joined forces to take real estate to the next level. We practice with honesty, integrity, and the knowledge to help make the buying and selling process easy and stress-free for all of our clients. We pledge to always make our clients our top priority from start to finish, and even after the house is closed. We will always be a valued resource for information and assistance for our buyers and sellers. Our customers over the years have become not only past clients, but great friends. As we join hands together as the Property Sisters of the Mohawk Valley, we look forward to serving our clients and our community and making a positive difference. You can reach us at 315-601-9630 for all of your real estate needs.
Hi, this is attorney Nick Pasalacqua. The team of attorneys I have assembled at Passalacqua & Associates has been carefully hand-picked to include the best trial attorneys in the particular areas of the law that we practice. Have you been charged with DWI or any other crime? Members of our team include former assistant district attorneys, now fighting to protect your rights 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Have you or someone you love been seriously injured in a motor vehicle accident? Members of the team at Passalacqua & Associates include former insurance defense attorneys, now fighting to ensure that you get every penny you're entitled to. If you need legal help quick, don't waste your time or money calling anyone else. Remember, for legal help quick, you better call Nick and the team at Passalacqua & Associates. 315-500-NICK or 315-500-6425 or visit cnytriallaw.com today.